Call the meeting to order at 6:01. And we're going to approve the minutes of June 11th for our regular select board meeting.
Second.
And any discussion?
Discussion. I see here that Craig Hunt was employed to take the minutes of this meeting. Who authorized his hire?
Instead of Connie's salary, he came in and did
Who
it.
authorized his hire?
I asked him to do it.
You don't have the right to do that. The whole board needs to meet to do that. You just don't. There's more, but we might as well get on with it.
All right, we might as well show
There you
it.
go.
Shall I get out pen and paper?
Whatever you want to do.
Hey, John. So anybody else have comments on the minutes? So shall we vote to approve the minutes?
Is Nick on?
He's on Zoom.
Zoom. Okay. Hi, Nick.
He probably should unmute to be able to vote. So I'll ask him to unmute so he can vote.
Hi. Thanks.
So shall we vote on the minutes from the 11th? All those in favor of accepting? Nick, are you in favor of accepting the minutes from the 11th?
Nick, maybe you could say it in the chat or try again. We didn't quite understand you.
Yes, sir.
You're muddled. It sounds like you're getting cut off a little bit.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that's better.
What I was saying is I was not present for that meeting.
I said abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
So we have 2 in favor and
One opposed.
1 opposed. So the minutes are approved?
No.
No.
It's not majority.
Okay. So then do we come back to them next week or what do we do with that?
She can repost them next week. If you have no problem, we'll be posting them next week. If you feel that you've got enough to carry.
Okay, I will read through the additions and deletions that came in today. And then we'll address them as we go through the agenda. Correspondence from Craig Hunt, correspondence from Andy Snelling, old business, a Skatepark equipment loan. Old business, Vermont Municipal equipment loan update and promissory note. Old business, Skatepark proposal. New business, Roadside Mower. New business, State of Vermont Childcare effective July 1st. And executive session about a resident issue. Okay, and then we will move on to members of the public. We would like to welcome our Senator, Nader Hashim.
Close.
Okay.
Yeah, not Hashim.
Nader.
Thank you.
Well, welcome.
Thank
Would you
you.
like to speak with us?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for having me. So it's good to be back. I was here last year, and I've had a number of meetings over at the library as well, and just trying to take the time, now that we're in between sessions, to make sure I visit every single town here in Wyndham County, and making sure I'm sitting down with select boards and talking about some of the concerns that you might have, and things that you'd like to see in the upcoming legislative session, or things that you don't want to see in the upcoming legislative session. The last time that I was here, the main topic of conversation had to do with speeding in town. I've heard about that both here at the select board and in private conversations with folks and over at the library. And, last year, we talked about this idea of traffic enforcement through cameras and, radar detection and so on. And, myself and a couple other senators were able to develop a bill that, wasn't super invasive, but also does take a step to use some level of traffic enforcement or in areas where law enforcement is not often seen. The bill is it's kind of a first step. Right now it can only be used in construction zones, and the Agency of Transportation is going to start reaching out to towns and trying to work out the best times and places to set up these cameras. So, my recommendation, if this is something that the town is interested in, definitely reach out to AOT in advance to, find out if there is a possibility to have something like that here in Townsend if there are construction zones. I know that the speeding issue, is not just for construction zones. It's, I've heard about it for a while, and basically all over the area. But it is one step in that direction. And so, one of the other concerns also had to do with data privacy, which I agree with, because people don't want Big Brother retaining hundreds or thousands of pictures of people. And so, one of the parts of the bill is after the ticket or the warning is resolved, the pictures are totally deleted. After a certain number of months, I believe it was 8 months, the pictures are also deleted if there's no response or anything like that. And they also can't be used for any other purposes, any other like investigations or anything like that. They're just for speeding. So that was some good news I wanted to deliver because it seemed to be a really big topic of conversation the last time I was here. So, looking forward into the future, well, first I'll mention, over the last session I served as the Vice Chair of Judiciary and also as a member of the Education Committee. And my hope is to return to those same two committees this upcoming session if I'm able to return to Montpelier. And so, I mainly just wanted to open it up to the select board as well. If you folks have any thoughts that you want to share with me, or things that you want me to know for this upcoming session, or things that you want me to work on, happy to carry that forward.
I would like to say something. In terms of the traffic cameras, I want to say, as a person who lives in a small town and in a small community, if I'm getting stopped at the riverbend and somebody wants to talk to me knowing I'm on the select board, it's about the traffic camera possibility. They're very concerned about their privacy. Also, some of them don't even live in Townsend, and they're affected by it because you need to drive through West Townsend to get to areas of Jamaica and Wyndham or whatever it is. And this is something that is brought up to me on a weekly basis about people being really concerned about what it does, if it's permanent, what it does to our landscape. I mean, we don't even allow billboards, and signage on the sides of roads is really regulated, things like that. So that was one concern, but a big major concern is privacy. And I would like to be able to point them in a direction where they could get their voices heard. Mostly I tell them to try to contact you because you had come here, and I know that our select board at the time had reached out to you about the speeding issue, which everybody agrees is an issue. But I was looking forward to an opportunity of you coming back so that I could let you know that I've had probably more than 20 people come to me and be pretty upset about the possibility of their photograph being taken on their commute to work, things like that. Whether they're speeding or not, I have no idea, but it is a major concern, and I'd like to be able to pass information to them, because a lot of them had said that they didn't know about it till it felt like it was too late. And maybe it had already gone forward. So I'd like to just be able to pass people an email address or some ways that they could stay informed on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can leave a few of my business cards with you. I will say that I mean, I agree with the data privacy piece, and that is something that I discussed when working on the bill. Unless or up until the bill is concurred by both the House and the Senate, it's never too late to reach out. The bill that I worked on came from a really strong wave of concern about speeding and a desire to get traffic cameras. And it does only apply to construction zones and only if people are speeding. They are about the size approximately of the signs that you already have with the digital signs, why is the word escaping me? The speed limit signs that show how fast you're going. So it's basically akin to that. But if data privacy is the concern, I'm happy to share some of the details with folks who are who are seeking more information about that. But it's kind of walking this balance of trying to make sure people aren't going 50 or 60 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, but also making sure that there isn't this creepy stockpile of thousands and thousands of pictures of people just on their daily commute. So there's a middle ground there for both sides of that argument, I feel like. But I'll make sure to leave some cards, and if folks want to reach out, I'm happy to share more details about the bill.
Thank you.
Senator, how far along is the bill in the process? I know we talked about it in spring of last year.
Yep. So
Or was it the fall?
it's enacted. It's in law. It's going to go through a process where it's a long process. AOT will be reaching out to different towns that have construction zones, or towns can reach out to AOT about the possibility of setting up traffic cameras in those zones when the construction is active. And so it's, I believe, July of 2025 is the timeline.
Do the cameras only come on when the person is speeding?
Yes.
So in other words, people could be going by, and as long as they're not going over the speed limit, nothing is being put on that camera.
Correct, and
it's got like a trigger.
Yeah, it has to be 10 miles over the speed limit, and the first offense is a warning.
So if people aren't going over the speed limit, they have nothing to worry about, basically, as far as their pictures of being, okay.
They're pretty much more like the signs we've got already.
Yeah.
Where we've set them up to trigger at 30 miles an hour, but they could be triggered at any speed.
Mhm.
They don't have the recording capability. And I've seen them, I don't know what the AOT does, but I've seen them actually on carts where they can roll it right into place, chain it down, and then come get it. It doesn't have to be a permanent fixture in town. So.
And I just want to emphasize again, pictures can't be used for anything else except for speeding, and they do get destroyed after a certain amount of time.
8 months is a good window. I mean, any appeals on it, any action on it should be done by them being civil, all civil. Have to be going pretty quick around here to get it to a felony.
Yes.
Okay, anything further?
I'm happy to speak generally about anything you'd like to talk about. If you have any questions about certain bills, if I know the answer, I'm happy to share it with you, or I can circle back around and go get the right information for you. But if there's anything else about this upcoming session that you'd like to share, I'm all ears.
Taxes.
I'm sorry?
Taxes.
That's a big one. I heard that last night and also every other night since we adjourned. But yes, that's anything specific about it aside from
Double digit? Yeah, that's pretty substantial.
it is. And I think that there's a lot that gets lost in communication between the legislature and what's presented in the news and on social media. But the thing that I think that I want to make sure folks know is that we are, as a legislature, constitutionally required to fund education, and when school boards send up their budgets that are approved by the voters, we have to find a way to pay for those budgets. And I mean, not to sound like a smart aleck, but nobody is sitting in Montpelier thinking that it's fine and dandy that taxes are going up 14% on average across the state. But it's, well, actually, one point I do also want to share that I think is also not often talked about at all, really, in media, is that there's a very big connection between health insurance and property taxes as well. And I'll provide an example. There was, when I was on the Senate Education Committee, we had a day where we were getting testimony from a number of superintendents around the state, and one of them from Chittenden County, not Burlington, but in the orbit of Burlington, was talking about how they were trying to maintain the same healthcare plan, or the same health insurance plan for the same number of employees for the following year. But because Blue Cross Blue Shield increased their rates by 16%, that district had to budget an additional $4 million to pay for that. And I mean, that number was shocking to me, but I mean, that applies across the board. And so, the same health insurance company is asking for another, I believe, 9% rate increase for the upcoming year. And I think that's where that is one of the places where the focus really needs to be. So just wanted to put that out there as well. And also I'll just add, when I say the focus needs to be on health insurance companies, I mean making sure that rates aren't going up an astronomical amount and being in a way rubber stamped by the Green Mountain Cares Board, which is that board is meant to their mission statement is essentially to make sure that healthcare is affordable and accessible in Vermont, and with increasing rates like that year after year, it's a bit of a contradiction.
Wouldn't it be more cost effective for the state to just create its own insurance to provide to people? And you think they do that at one point already?
Yes,
and wouldn't that be more
certainly
cost effective?
Would be much more cost effective. The state tried doing that, I believe, under Shumlin, and then I don't know why I was not there at the time. I think it was 2014 maybe, but I'm not sure why he got cold feet. But yes.
I don't know if you can answer this question or have any idea what it concerns, but we are being told by the state that we have to do a reappraisal of all our properties. And we've reached out to 3 or 4 different companies to see if they'll take on the job. And we're getting denied because, and cited as the reason is that waiting for the state to set a path forward on reappraisals. Do you know anything about this? It says, we are concerned that the process might interfere with future projects as the state seems to be moving towards a slotting of communities. Any notion what that's about?
Let me look at some of my summaries real quick. I'm not sure if that specific point will be in here. Just give me one quick second.
My concern is that if the companies that do reappraisals are turning down our requests because they're waiting for the state to act, and yet we're mandated by the state to do reappraisal by November 12th, kind of puts us in an impossible situation.
Right, I see your point. I don't have an answer off the top of my head for that specific thing, but I know the Government Operations Committee handles that particular subject area. So I can sorry, I'm just taking some
Or
notes real
just
quick.
tell us.
So I can
Reach out to.
Yes, the person to reach out to would be Senator Hardy, and I'm happy to reach out to her for you and circle back around and get some information for you. So just to simplify it, it's basically a question about appraisals, and you're unable to find a company that's going to do appraisals because the companies are uncertain about what the state is doing with the rules around appraisals.
Correct.
And so, but you're in a position where you need to do the appraisal because the state's requiring it, so it's, okay.
Are you?
I think it's Comcast 22.
Yes, that's,
No, I was
Appraisals.
reading
Okay, because it would be good to give that senator your information so you can talk to him directly and have him answer your questions.
Helen, you could also talk to Helen.
Yeah, Helen's a better contact person.
Helen, oh,
She's right behind you.
and, okay. And is your email on the town website?
It should be, it's, yeah, h.holt.lister at townsendbt.gov.
All right. Okay, I'll get that information for you.
Thank you for everything you do for us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Can I ask one more question about the education tax? What do we tell our residents that get hit the hardest by it? What do we do? I mean, I know there's appeal processes and stuff like that, but it's not coming from our town. What are you guys telling people to do about it? Because I'd like to be able to have some resources ready for members of the public if they need it.
Yeah, I think the most important step is being involved in school board meetings and watching the budget in those meetings, and also looking at where the costs of different services are rising. Private contractors are also part of this. For example, I mean, when the cost of everything goes up, whether it's utilities or commodities or private services, and schools are using those services, then that's going to raise the taxes. But to your question, I think that staying on top of the school board and watching what's going on there and being involved in the conversations at the school board is definitely the first step. That would be my first suggestion.
It's interesting because in our community, in our district, they just closed one of our very small schools, and then one of our schools that decided to leave the district but in our community also was closed, and our taxes just keep going up, but our very small schools just keep closing, and it's a really hard pill to swallow for parents that want their kids to go to school in their neighborhood, or at least in the topography of Vermont. They don't want them to drive 30 minutes down a big huge hill, it's so then to have the taxes keep rising, I know it's really hard for people. It's hard for people to even afford things as it is, so that I'm just wondering what to say,
So
or what direction to point them in.
Yeah, so one thing also to just keep in mind is, those school closures, were fairly recent, they were this year, and that will be felt, or the change will be felt the following year, when school budgets are done the next time around. So, I mean, that would be my response to that. I know towns love their small schools. I live in Dummerston. My daughter grew up there, and I love our small school as well. And I don't want, I don't want to see these schools that towns love going away because there's no way to fund them. And I think this also comes back to a broader conversation about our population and our demographics and our economy. And whether we have a growing economy and more people in the state, and to have a broader tax pool to draw from to fund the schools that we want to have, and that's also connected to housing. We did thankfully pass a pretty solid change to Act 250 for towns that have zoning and neighborhood designated areas in their villages. So it's definitely going to be easier to develop in village centers while keeping, the regulations still exist for outside village and town centers, so that, we can still have our green spaces and, mountains and rolling hills and so on, that, the things that we love about rural Vermont. But yeah, those changes, I'm confident, are going to, allow for, better development in neighborhood areas, or in town and village centers, where folks will have, more access to commodities, and they can walk, and instead of driving, they can bike places. And so but the other issue is that it's going to take a bit of time for developers to develop, and to get these changes rolling.
Yes, Laura?
I'm terrible with statistics and numbers and things like that, but I do know that I heard people were really appalled by the small turnout for the budget for the schools, the education budget. It was like a tiny number of people showed up to actually vote on that budget, and hardly anybody ever shows up for the meetings. And we have some of the highest paid educators in this area, in all of Vermont. And if nobody's going to the meetings and nobody's paying attention to what's being done, then in a sense we're kind of bringing it on ourselves. I know that's not a popular viewpoint, but
You see
what's
how many
going on.
people come here.
what?
Same thing. You see how many people come here. You're here most
I know.
meetings, and it's not unusual for you to be the only one here.
Well, maybe people will start getting their pocketbooks swinging so hard they'll start changing a little
We don't
bit.
drive those people away. That's the problem.
Who drive? I don't drive them away.
No.
What did you say?
No.
Oh, don't go down that road.
All right. Do you have anything else for us, or does anybody else have anything for our senator? Please come back again,
Happy to.
and thanks again.
I'll leave a few of my cards on that desk over there.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the fire department asked to be under the members of the public.
You're up.
I'm up, okay, I have, the first thing is a cooperative agreement between the Vermont Department of Forests and Parks for the old brush truck that they allow the town of Townsend to possess and use as long as we maintain it, use it, and take care of it. To keep that agreement going, they need signatures.
Do you want me to make a copy?
We just gotta send one back.
Is it something we can sign and leave with Connie to send, or do you want it at the end of the meeting?
I have a contact person, I have the contact person, I would love to send it back to her.
Okay,
if I could.
okay.
This is something that's been going on for years. Is it 5
Every
years?
5 years.
Every 5 years.
So it's something that we can just
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Ally Evans signing on behalf of the select board our continued use of the brush truck.
Well, it has everybody's, so that we should sign it.
Yes. I don't need a motion to approve.
Yeah.
No, okay.
No, this is just general.
So I'm sorry, we're not doing.
I guess we don't need it.
We should take a copy.
Are you gonna leave right after the fire department, or are you here till the bitter end, as far as getting a copy?
I can wait for it.
Okay. So we'll get this at the end of the meeting then, the copy.
It should probably go in with the registration for that truck. That should be here someplace.
So the next piece, I don't know if it will come up under your old business as far as the budget and the conversations that have taken place in these meetings. There seems to be a lot of confusion about the fire department's budget. Accusations of not being transparent. And that no one knows how the budget is derived, gets to where it's at.
I would just like to make a comment that when you question something, it's a question, it's not an accusation.
I can agree with that as long as it's actually worded that way. After I reviewed the recorded meeting, it certainly felt a whole lot different.
Okay.
Maybe I took it the wrong way, maybe it was said the wrong way, but you could definitely perceive that we were trying to do something that we are absolutely not trying to do.
I can speak for myself, or we can open it up to the board for discussion if you'd like.
Whatever we gotta do to just get everybody on the same sheet of music, because there definitely seemed like a whole lot of confusion about our budget. And
Well, I'll speak for myself. When I looked at your budget, I'll call it, because it's the fire department, compared to other budgets, it had extra monies in there that could be rolled over to the next year. And things like contingent fund that didn't appear in other budgets. So that's why I was questioning, why is this budget so much different than other budgets? And I realized that this is maybe my interpretation, but part of it is anybody that can see knows we need a new firehouse. And this was a savings mechanism to save for a firehouse. So if I'm wrong, tell me.
yes, that's why I'm here. I'm actually sad that all the previous boards, when they've had questions, have contacted the chief to ask them the questions like, hey, what's going on here? I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me?
We did send Sherwood an email because he hadn't been at several meetings, and we were trying to approach it that way. If you'd rather in the future that we contact you, fine.
That might be probably your best avenue. I will say it was easy when Sherwood was on the board previously. He would kind of act as the liaison.
He still is on the board.
Yes.
And we were looking to him for guidance because he had mentioned something, I forget what it was, and not being at the meeting, we emailed to get some clarification and never heard back.
We can deal with that. I mean, it's a rather straightforward thing. To clarify what you're talking about. 10 pages as opposed to 5 minutes, we can deal with that.
I'm not sure what that means.
We can explain it, he's here. We can explain how the budget comes across, what the ideas were, the thing about the usual $20,000 being in reserve every year, and why it didn't this year. You want me to start?
Quite honestly, if you back up to I believe it might have been the 11th meeting, May 11th or 14th, your meeting, Sherwood did explain to everybody the process and why that money was. I'm here, I'll explain it again. I have absolutely no problem doing that. And I think it needs to be done, because I believe Katie was the one who asked that, we need to get somebody from the fire department in to help us understand this. I still haven't been reached out to. So I assume that probably that vote is coming up, and you as the board have the choice to do however you see fit with any leftover monies, that's obviously your guys' job. But to start at the beginning, every year, and since Connie's been the assistant, she sends out a reminder to both myself and Sherwood that our budget is due. And before that time, it's in our agenda at the fire department meetings to ask anyone on the department who wants to take part of being on the budget committee. For the last at least 3 years, to my recollection, it's been the chief, the assistant chief, and the treasurer. No one else has stepped forward to assist on that budget. We look at that budget, we look at the numbers, we look at the past 2 to 3 years to see where things have gone. The big one that stands out is our dues that we have to pay to Keene Mutual Aid. That jumps a lot of money every year. The contingency fund for the new firehouse, we were advised by a few board chairs ago to put that line item in because the association was funding a feasibility study for a new building. I'll get to that in a minute. So we proposed that budget to the select board to approve or disapprove or contact us with any questions they got in their pre-meeting for their budget season. So what we do is, because given the age of our trucks, our newest truck is 24 years old. I don't know if the highway department has any trucks that old, do you?
We just had a grader that we got rid of that was 23 years old.
Okay, so point being, old equipment needs maintenance, it needs work. So we put extra money into the repair line. That's, I assume, is the line item you're looking at that has a big number in it. And that is so if one of the fire trucks goes down, we don't have to have you guys hold a special meeting to get the truck fixed and leave the townspeople with a much lesser fire protection. That's the point of having that large money, because as vehicles get older, usually the prices increase to get them fixed because it's bigger components that are failing. So that's the reason for that increase in our budget. If we don't use it, we don't use it. Now, yes, it could be taken, and for a lot of years it was taken and put into the general fund or the surplus fund, which there's actually minimal oversight to know where that money ever goes as a taxpayer. If the select board chooses to roll it into, and where 1 year, I know it went into the fire pond to put new dry hydrants, so because we only had 2 dry hydrants in the town of Townsend. Now, thanks to Brian's work, we have, I think it's 7, we have 8 dry hydrants spread around for better fire protection. Once again, it all takes money. So the select board at that time agreed, you know what? We can roll that extra money into there, good reason. It sure would explain, because of the hit the town's taken, with the extra money going to unforeseen highway expenses, adding $200,000 capital equipment fund. The board was generous enough to put a lot of ARPA money towards the purchase of the new fire truck. In this town, the taxpayers have been really reluctant to put anything more than $10,000 a year into a reserve fund. And they've all been warned for 25 years, that's not enough money. That's $200,000 at the end of 20 years, which is the recommended replacement cycle of the frontline engine. But nobody wants to really up it. They would rather we borrow money. So they were told that when the last engine was bought 24 years ago. The chief at that time explained to everybody at town meeting. So this new truck we just ordered is now over $700,000. So the idea was, okay, we have a reserve fund, the ARPA money, this truck will basically be paid for. There is no loans, which should, I would think, make it easier to get the other loans that the town needs. There's no interest coming back. that money from the ARPA account is actually gonna accrue $24,000 because it's in an insured account as a down payment on that truck, which makes up the $20,000 that was removed from a article of town meeting. If you look back at all the warnings, you'll see it's been 10,000, 20,000 to get that account built up so that the taxpayers' tax bill doesn't keep going like this when they're on fixed incomes. Does that explain the budgeting
It explains
process?
that part of my thinking is if the taxpayers at town meeting are saying we're only gonna give 10 or 20,000 and then we're taking money that hasn't been spent in the budget and rolling it over, isn't that sort of doing what the taxpayers didn't want us to do?
If we were doing it intentionally, and maybe that's how people are viewing it, that's sad if they are, because there's absolutely no guarantee that the select board's gonna choose to put that money in. The reason why if you're at the town meetings for several years, all I've ever heard is, oh, you gotta stop putting money away, that's my money. Most of those people seem to move on out of the state for some reason, or at least out of this town. They would rather that we just go get loans for everything and pay an interest rate. Because while you can get a inexpensive municipal rate on a loan, it's still money you're paying.
That's true.
And the other thing is if, you add in a $700,000 fire truck and I don't know what a new grader and backhoe and all that cost. I mean, what does that do to your tax bill that year? It's not gonna be level. So if you're on a fixed income, you plan $3,000 for taxes and all of a sudden you get a $5,000 bill, you gotta figure out how to pay that.
I think I can answer your question in how that worked. Did you have something you want to say?
No, I just wanted to read this because we said that we didn't, at the select board meeting last night, this is dated, May 29th, to Sherwood. Your recommendation that the fire department unused monies be rolled over to FY25. We would like more information on the request and we're requesting more detailed budgets for the past few years and an explanation of why you are requesting this and the rationale for doing this in one department. And so we did address it. It's not like we just dropped the ball. You're saying now that next time we should contact you and we would next time add you to that communication. But it's not like we dropped the ball.
Well, there's a
Well,
part
I'm
of it
I'm not saying that anybody dropped the ball, that's not what I'm saying is that, it looked in the meeting that I watched, I think it was the 28th, it certainly looked as though you were gonna vote no to roll that over. Until Katie said that she wasn't comfortable with, that she wanted more explanation, and I think the rest of the board members present agreed with more information. All I'm saying is I'm very easy to get a hold of.
Okay.
There's absolutely, no reason why.
We went directly to Sherwood because he made the request.
Yes,
So,
and right, and as a board member, yes.
but we didn't even hear back. It was radio silence, so,
But, and yes, in times like that, I mean, absolutely,
maybe we should've-
reach out to me.
okay.
Whether he's sick, on vacation, whatever, that's, Sherwood's gonna answer that. I
Okay.
can't answer that for him.
dealing with medical situations. So what I want to clarify is, one, I asked or made that request. We're not turning the money into FY25's operating budget, okay? What we're doing is turning that money into the reserve fund for the fire truck. Because even if this one's paid for, we're still gonna have to start that ball rolling for the next one. Who knows? We've got two, with the new one and one other, you got two good line trucks, but they're 24 and what's 4? How old's 4?
33.
33 years old. So by kind of going proactive with it, we don't inflate our budget. We've actually dropped it over the last 5 years. And whatever's left over should go into that reserve fund. there was a comment that I heard about none of the other departments can do it. Well, yes, they can, but they have to have a reserve account that we don't create. I don't think we have the right as a board to create a reserve account. That's all with the town meeting members. And you make that request to go in your existing reserve account. And that request comes here. So we weren't wanting to roll that money into the operations account, the one that we've already done, it's been approved. That money would go into the fire vehicle reserve and start the ball rolling. Or if something happened where we needed more funds to pay this off, they were there. And that reserve fund would stay open, wouldn't have to close it. So that's where I think the miscommunication.
And who is in charge of requesting payment from the reserve accounts?
It would be a board.
It would be a board
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah, it's gonna come up. It's gonna come up here in, well, you should have already gotten it
We
with
did
the
get-
bridge. Did you
Oh.
do the bridge?
No, we got something, what did we get today from the fire department? I think it was $1,200 and something for, was it the truck?
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, that was a bill for the cake.
Okay.
No, what you would do is the fire chief would come before the board, say, the truck is ready for delivery. It has to pass inspection and get into our building, but we're requesting to release those funds to pay that bill. Now, that money may have to be moved in April if the truck comes, let's say, in September. Because if you take money out of a reserve account that's on a CD, you lose a ton of money doing that. So Elaine, you have to move it out of that reserve account the April before the truck's coming. And then you would pay the bill just like you pay the warrant.
Mm-hmm. And it would be a select board signed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would come in
Yeah.
just like those.
So I'm hearing, I heard at one point that this $20-some thousand, I don't have the exact amount, is going to go towards help purchase this $700,000 truck.
No.
And then I hear it's not going to, and it's there in case you need repairs for.
No.
So the reason why, I don't know how to say it other than that we ask for too much money in our budget because we don't spend it. Which I'm sure that no one outside of the association or members know that the association foots 50 or plus better percent of our operating costs for that department. We've been accused by past boards that we hoarded money. And I'm not saying you guys, I'm not saying that. But I have sat in town meeting and listened to board chairs say that we're hoarding money and keeping it from the townspeople. And instead of coming and just asking the question, no, we're actually supplementing so the taxpayers aren't paying the full burden. And the extra money that's in our budget, normally it's somewhere around $15,000 because we don't know what the failure is gonna be on any given moment of one of them trucks.
I'll give you an example.
But if we don't have that money, if we streamline, which we can certainly streamline our budget right to last year's payments. But what that's gonna force you to do is at 2 a.m. when a truck breaks down, I'm gonna get on the phone to the board chair and say, hey, you gotta have a special meeting and you gotta have it tomorrow because we need $20,000 to go fix the truck that's broke and get it back in service so we can protect the town. Now, I don't know, but that seems kind of crazy
Okay,
to
so it's a
operate that
contingency.
way.
It's a contingency fund, essentially.
That's basic, yes.
Okay.
It's if something breaks, we can get that truck in service as quickly as we can.
That's
Now,
what
if
I
this
want.
board prefers we don't do that, we're getting ready in October to start another budget. We can certainly streamline that thing right down to nothing. But when something breaks, you won't be able to wait until the next meeting to have a meeting.
So you're talking two
So-
things when you ask the question.
Yep, and the contingency fund in the town report
Yeah.
says FH, firehouse.
Yeah.
And are we saving it for the firehouse or are we saving it for the trucks?
No, it was recommended to the budget committee by a past board chair, and it wasn't Sherwood, to have, when we started the feasibility study, and you may have a copy of it here.
I do have
Okay.
a copy.
That is completely different. We were told that we needed a placeholder in our budget because as we started this feasibility study, the town already owns the land. They purchased the land to build a fire station on. That's what they sold it to the taxpayers.
That's not what we did in the beginning. It could be there for now
But-
for a firehouse.
But it was, we were told to put a placeholder in there, so that way, if you're doing a feasibility study, if you need test sites dug again, if you need samples done, if they need a road access for some reason, you need to have something there. We didn't make that up, we were told to put it in there. As far as the feasibility study goes, we took receipt of that feasibility study about a week or two prior to COVID shutting down the whole world. I don't need to tell you what happened then.
Is that something you can revamp and bring back to the
Nothing got done.
taxpayers?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
So nothing could get done. So then, once people could actually sit in a room and talk to people again, the building committee re-met, and it came out of that the charge to me was to get an updated after COVID pricing because the prices have doubled or worse. So that's what I've been trying to do. But much like finding appraisers, you can't find somebody to do up a new estimate. It's a work in progress, but if people say, no, that guy left our company, no, our guy's too new, oh, I'll have the guy get a hold of you. You know, it's the same thing. I mean, but we're very afraid of what that price tag is gonna be now. And in good conscience, I mean, let's face it, the members of this fire department are all taxpayers in this town. And we don't want our taxes going up any worse than anybody else does. We have the same struggles, the same burdens as everyone else. So the reason why the committee has not revisited the select board and said, here's the feasibility study, here's the plan we recommend, here you go, because it'll be a town building, the town has to take it from there, which means the select board through a committee. Because if that price comes in double, we have to give the taxpayers another option. Because $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million, I'm not bringing that. I will not ask the taxpayers for that. Now, at that point, if someone wants to go chasing USD grants and everything else, that's great. But I'm not coming with a price tag. I can't in good conscience bring a price tag to the taxpayers for that building. That's why you haven't received. It's not dead, it's not gone. It's in limbo at the present. And the same people that were on the building committee are also on the truck committee. Small group of people, too much work, not enough hands to go around. So while the truck was being done, the building committee had to take a step back.
Also on the building committee, we did have members of the public as well.
Yeah.
Is there any way to streamline it? I mean, you probably streamlined it a lot already, but I mean, the actual, if you've already had a feasibility study done and you've already gone this far, is there any way you can change things to make it more cost effective? Or is it a done deal? Is it you have to stick with a particular plan?
No, it's certainly not a done deal, but we don't know what today's costs are, because that's 3 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know what you paid for a gallon of milk before COVID, but I think it's gone double or triple.
Mm-hmm.
When that's controlled, so.
And as he was saying, he's working on trying to get some estimates.
We're trying to get that, a 2024, 2025 estimate back that's got real numbers that somebody can actually do something with, because I wouldn't trust pre-COVID numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And then if it's as shocking as we all think it is, then we feel that we need to give the taxpayers a different option, because it's just too much money. Like I said, unless somebody knows how to really write grants and get a lot of money,
Even if.
We've got some pledges, but it's not gonna cover that kind of bill.
What about an informational meeting where everybody puts their heads together and helps you try? Because I think everybody looks at that firehouse and
Yeah.
says, we need a
We
new firehouse.
had several informational meetings when it started. But once again.
Were they
it's-
helpful?
the people there were extremely supportive. I will say that. But we're not there yet. If I can't give you a real number, if I give you 3-year-old numbers, what can you do with that? Except guess. Well, everybody says it's double. But is that the number? I don't know. That's why we're trying to find a cost estimator to give us current information. But that's where that's at.
Okay, so where do we stand on this? I don't even think we have a motion.
You know, what we need is, and I can make the motion, I just can't vote on the motion, that the select board direct the treasurer to, how do I wanna say this? Deposit the remaining budget of the fire department after the auditor has closed the books. So that will know exactly how much money we have. And I know that I've spent about $7,000 this week out of those budgets, so, it's not what it was when we.
And that will be the firehouse department and the fire vehicles
No, it wouldn't
department.
be in the, what is the thing called, it's a reserve fund for replacement of, what they say, a pumper or an engine or
New
something.
engine.
Fire, just say fire
Same
truck.
article warning that's in there every year. We removed it last year, but.
And that's all the board has to do, is just direct her to make that calculation. They did last year, I think she came up with $17,000 that went to the reserve fund. And, that's kind of where it's set. The rest of it is pretty simple. I mean, you can see, I do purchase orders for everything, down to a dime. So you can see exactly where we spent the town's money over the last, what have I been doing it, 3 years, 4 years? Almost 4 years. So,
And then we can readdress this at budget time.
Yeah.
When we develop a new budget.
absolutely. You'll get our budget, before the 31st, like always. And that's the time that we always used to ask people to come in and discuss their budgets. If there was something we were flat out not gonna fund, like planning, we wanted, what was it, $26,000? And they actually came in and talked to us about how that money was gonna go and why it was important to have a town plan. So, we approved that. I think we cut it back because they had money in their reserve
And they were
account.
going for the grant, and then after
Yeah.
it didn't turn out.
The grant failed, so we gave them, I think it was $11,000 plus the $6,000 out of the reserve account. But there's another one, planning needs to, if they don't use their money, ask you the same thing, because you're gonna have to build up to another town plan over time.
So let me understand correctly, you can make a motion, but you can't vote.
I can't vote.
Okay, so did you make a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
The
And
motion-
Can you restate the
Yeah.
motion?
The motion is to direct the treasurer to pay from the fire department funds that
Funds
remain,
or budget?
budget, that's a better word, budget, that remain at the close of FY '24. And deposit them in the fire engine, fire truck, whatever it says, reserve account. And again, that money is controlled by this board. No, you just can't walk up and say, okay, I need some money. It has to go through a full meeting.
so as opposed to money in the
Honey, a second.
line item budget, you can just write it out an invoice for
I send
that
you a purchase
as
order.
opposed to spending from the reserve.
Right, we don't spend for the reserve.
You
It's set
request.
for just that.
And you request select board approval.
I think, Helen, you've got a reserve account, right?
The reappraisal? I don't know if they consider that a reserve account or not.
I think it's not.
I think it is, but anyway, that's the motion.
Can I just read this to make sure I got it?
Yep.
So the motion is to direct the treasurer to pay from the fire department budget funds that remain at the close of fiscal year '24 and deposit them into the fire department reserve account.
I think it's
It's a new fire truck.
Yeah.
Oh, fire
That,
truck,
that reserve fund is the new fire truck. It may say new engine pumper, but yes,
new fire truck reserve account.
yes. And then that's the only thing that that can be used for.
Okay, I think I have the motion, and Katie has seconded it.
And, any further discussion? So, let's vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I
Abstain.
haven't,
I'm
and
gonna abstain, because I don't
Abstain.
quite understand.
I feel the same way, but I'm a little torn because I want to vote for it, and if we have further deeper questions, deal with them during budget time, is how I'm thinking. So I'm gonna vote for it.
What will happen to this money if you don't direct it? Is it rolls?
It rolls back
Yeah.
into the general fund.
And it does offset taxes,
It
but then
does.
you gotta raise more taxes.
It
percent.
does.
And I just wanna add one more thing. Are we still in discussion? No, you said vote.
We just had a vote,
We just had a
3 in
vote.
favor, 2 abstained.
Okay. Let me just add one thing, it doesn't really matter to the general point. But when we set out to do this adventure this last time, we had a history of $20,000. The last budget was $20,000, this one was gonna be $20,000. But then we had the bridge at $50,000, and we had this building at $50,000, and then we had $200,000 in a reserve account for the highway department. And it seemed to me at the time that asking them for that $20,000 was just kind of a bridge too far. Not all of the people that are on the fire department agreed with me, but it was one of those decisions that really needed to be made. So taking this money that's left over, putting it back into the reserve account will kind of cushion that loss of that money. We got 17 last year. I think we're gonna come in around 15 this year. I haven't got all the numbers done yet, but around 15 this year. So that's where it comes from. That's why there'll probably be another town meeting thing for $20,000.
And I'd love to see some informational meetings on how we can get a firehouse and how we can, and I would help you if you wanted, just as a citizen.
Yes, well, if I can get updated cost estimate, I know I can, I'm just not sure where it's gonna come from yet. But if we can get that, then we're gonna be ready to present it to the board. And then from there, I would assume the board would start a committee, because it's a lot of work, of, whatever, members of the fire department, members of the public, members are on the board that still don't have enough to do, and to work on that, whether it be chasing down grants, or whether the townspeople just say, hit the road, we don't have any money left. After just hearing about a double-digit tax increase, I don't know if any of us are gonna have any money left. Don't know. But yeah, then it'll need to be presented to the taxpayers.
Is there any way that you could maybe incorporate townspeople to help you do fundraising? Like, I know they do the boot down in Newfane, and they do chicken barbecue chicken. I mean, they do some fundraisers there, and I mean, I know that's a lot on your plate, but if you could ask members of the public if they'd be willing to help, maybe.
The problem with that, Laura, is we're a department that's subsidized by the town. Okay, so the town owns the truck, owns the building. Newbrook is an independent corporation, so they can do anything they want. The liability of somebody standing out there with or without their little vest, getting hit, is gonna drop right on the town.
Well, I'm not saying they should do good,
Yeah. I get sick of those
but
things.
still, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what we can do, I'm just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
you just have to be careful. All the things that like salmonella with baked goods and, you know, all of that stuff, you just have to be careful where it's coming from.
Well, a good question might be, why did they become an independent person in, you know, the fire department in Newbrook? You know,
Incorporated, I don't know, they didn't
why?
have one.
yeah. And what are the advantages to that?
They're not
So-
good. They're not good. With that stuff, there's too much that we have to deal with being a town-owned entity. Going to an incorporated thing, there's too many things, and you're gonna need an independent lawyer sitting on staff for every decision that has to be made, and that's kind of where they're at.
Okay.
So,
All right, so are we done with this, Connie?
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Okay, and then our next, and did you, fire department people, have anything further for us?
Unless there's something I can better clarify, or
I don't think so. As you said, you've left the door open for us to call you and,
exactly, and yeah, I would say is that summer wears on and you get towards that next budget cycle, if you have some direction or concerns or things you want, you know, before we make the budget, obviously would be the time to let us know so we can take that into consideration.
part of what I'm going to mention in the chair portion of the agenda is maybe getting some budget meetings sooner rather than later. And maybe one could be budget/fire department, and we could try to generate some positive interest that way. So, all right, let's move along. Thank you for coming, folks.
Yeah.
And Brian, are you sure you want to wait till the end, or do you want that copy now? Okay. And, okay, so now we're on to correspondence. We have a very cute little note from the Green Up kids, thanking us. Thank you so much from the Green Up Committee. So it's always a nice thing that they do for our town, and it makes the kids love their town. Second on correspondence is a letter from Craig Hunt. Shall I summarize it, or has? He raises, I might as well just read it. I raised a matter of concern about 2 months ago, but I don't see that the select board has brought it up for discussion and/or resolution. I would like to know roughly what it costs in wages and fuel to transport scrap metal from the town garage to a salvage yard, and how many tons were sold, and how much money Townsend received in return. As I understand it, the sale exceeded $3,000 in cash, and it was not surrendered to the treasurer. I would like to know, therefore, how this cash was spent, how newly purchased equipment has been inventoried, and which financial fund accounts document and reconcile the transactions. I believe that all municipal revenue should be received and recorded by the treasurer and reported at public meetings. I believe that all expenditures of municipal funds should be disclosed in the warrants that are approved during the meetings. So,
So it's an information.
When did he raise this?
he
Or to whom? 'Cause I
He
haven't-
came in and asked the treasurer. He didn't ever ask us.
Not, but 2 months ago.
No, 2 months
What was
ago,
that?
he asked the
Oh.
treasurer. And the treasurer said that Jeremy had come in and given her receipts for what he had turned in, the metal, and receipts for what he had purchased and the cash that was the difference. Was it done correctly? I don't know, but it was never asked of the board.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he's saying, I don't see the board has ever brought it up, but they were dealing with it. I mean, Jeremy, do you want to speak to it, or is what I just said pretty accurate?
I asked previous board members how to go about it, and they said do with what you need to and get what you need, and keep records of everything, which I did, which Eileen has. So, I mean, if there was a different policy, nobody informed me of it.
So, I mean, the only request that he has in this letter is how much gas and man hours would it take to go back and forth, and maybe looking for a reconciliation. I believe that you and Elaine feel that you're reconciled right now, that and that maybe in the future the money coming in from the metal should go in as a revenue right away, and anything being purchased should be purchased through the normal warrants. And we've said that, so I don't know what we want to do with that letter.
He has a pretty specific information request. Should we research it and get that information to him?
You won't stop hearing about it until you do.
Okay.
How the cash was spent.
Jeremy, is it covering your expenses, moving that junk?
Right now, we have a surplus of cash left, so yes. I mean,
How many
there
trips
are
are-
hours that would be paid anyways for guys, and we did it in the early spring when there was not a lot going on. And it's metal that's been sitting around for years, taking up room.
Has it been totally alleviated? Is it gone?
We have maybe one or two more loads left, but I mean, at this point, yes, we've done what we've wanted to accomplish.
So probably this fall.
Well, yeah, I mean, as we accumulate, we'll take it as we go from here on out. That way there's not a big pile of garbage sitting at the town yard, which people can say, we're still getting people coming in and dumping their scrap metal and refrigerators and microwaves. And it's like, no, we can't have this.
Yeah.
We have discussed the possibility of moving the scrap pile down to the gravel pit, where it's out of sight, and it's not encouraging people to add to it, and it's not encouraging people to have random conversations about.
If you load the truck up, take it so you don't have to unload it and load it again. Maybe it might be a good idea to moving forward to put it there.
Right.
But with what he's got.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But I don't know how we want to address this as a board, except to ask Connie to respond to the request, and then we'll put it on a future agenda.
Have Elaine run her items and.
I think we've already looked at it. We didn't think it was as big a deal as this. So.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Okay, then we move on to the next correspondence. This is from Andy Snelling. One question I have is when it's 8 pages, so folks, I'm not gonna read it.
Thank you.
But it has to do with, and the one thing I want to say first, it says regards Andrew Snelling, but it doesn't say is it Andrew Snelling, the Townshend resident, or Andrew Snelling, the planning board person. And to me, that's, so he's saying that people have brought it to his attention that there's been a revision to the grade in front of the salt shed, which now allows storm water from the town garage and yard to drain directly into Millbrook. And then it goes on and on for 8 pages.
He's asking for the breach in the retaining wall or whatever prevented the leakage into the stream to be repaired.
Mm-hmm. And Do you wanna speak to this, Jeremy?
Yes.
There's no breach in the retaining wall. It just, there is a silt pond, there's a catch basin back there. There's a path that we created down to the brook for the fire department to use, which is mounted properly for the water to flow away from it and then down into the catch pond. I mean, yes, there is some maintenance that needs to be done, but this, you know, the stormwater is gonna run in there no matter what. They put the garage next to a brook. You know, it was a design flaw in my opinion. So, as far as the grading goes in front of the salt shed, yeah. When you're spilling sand every time you load a truck, you have to scrape that stuff down, otherwise you're driving down into the salt shed. And with these storms we've had of past, I mean, other than redoing the whole stormwater catch basin area, you know, there's not a whole lot we can do.
Jeremy, isn't the fire shed dirt or sand, and then the
The
post
one
wall?
closest, the shed closest to the brook itself is sand.
Yeah.
And salt is the other, but the doors are on the same face. And, you know, in a heavy storm, that building is pretty big, there's a lot of water that comes off that roof. Other than paving the whole parking lot and running everything to catch basins, and there's not a lot you can do. You know, it's all dirt, it's gravel, there's gonna be runoff, there's gonna be silt.
So what you're saying is there has been no change.
There's
This
no
is
change.
just,
There's been maintenance done to it.
yeah.
The maintenance that was done to it, could have been interpreted as a change in the,
I'm sure, yes, absolutely. I mean, if you see somebody that's just dug up dirt and it looks fresh, and, you know.
Okay, how does the board wanna proceed with this?
Isn't there an
So-
inspector that does that kind of work? I mean, A&R, Agency of Natural Resources or something like that?
And Scott Jensen does their stream stuff, so, I mean,
Maybe that's the way to go, ask him to look at it and tell us what needs to happen.
well, that could be opening up a can of worms.
It should, but Andy Snelling already opened the can.
Right.
So,
I mean, there's a stream, a live stream that runs right behind the building.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's an impossible situation.
so in your opinion, the town is still compliant with the potable water permit that was issued in 2009 for the construction?
We haven't changed the design plans of anything, we just cleaned out, you know, excess dirt from over the years, you know.
So basically you will call, what was his name again? And have him take a look. And then let us know.
Tell us what we need to do. At least that's transparent that something's happening.
Okay.
You might not like the end result, but we don't know what's going on. We're better off knowing and trying to do something with it.
Okay, then we go on to warrants. Katie, would you like to read the warrants for us?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
The warrants for June 25th, 2024. Payroll in the amount of $12,236.29. Payroll taxes in the amount of $4,956.08. General fund in the amount of $865.95. General fund also in the amount of $20,103.14. General fund SAB.
Stone Arch Bridge.
Oh, the Stone Arch Bridge, thank you. In the amount of $139,818.00. General fund also $1,905. Highway fund $4,893.93. Highway also in the amount of $40,003.60, and the highway equipment in the amount of $3,380.38. That's a total of $228,000, $162.37.
Is that a
Thank you.
motion to pay it, or is that just reading it?
That was
It's
just
a
reading
motion.
them. I was gonna have the motion.
I was gonna make a
Entertain a
motion to
motion.
pay I make a motion that we pay the warrants of 6/25/2024.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain. on
Okay.
a couple of them.
So we have 3 ayes. Okay, then we move on to the treasurer report. We have the simplistic dollar figures for the 2 accounts. One is $2,201.36, and another is where's the amount? Available, closing available, right here. Okay, so one is $662,005.60, and the other is $30,000.
We also have highway report.
And, yep. And then Jeremy, would you like to give us the highway report that you haven't given us already?
Yeah, no, one of those warrants, the $40,000 one, that's for the gravel crushing, which Hunter's moving in this week to do. We needed to pay it out before the end of the fiscal year. We received our new backhoe yesterday, or today, actually, sorry. Other than that, life goes on.
You got your trailer.
Trailer's here, yep. Couple of us are trying to burn up some of our vacation time. We may or may not have a few days left over. I've been told we need permission from the board to roll time. Just a few days, it won't be more, I know I have 3 days left. I'm planning on taking one on Friday. So we just need approval to roll a couple of days for the two of us.
The policy says that you can send a written notice to the board, and they'll direct the treasurer to roll over that money, or that time, but you have to get rid of that time before the end of the next 12 months. That has to be off
For
the
the
list.
next month?
It's 12 months.
Oh, today. So,
We don't have a town clerk report at this time.
I just write it up and send it to them.
So it sounds like I guess they're just gonna do a written request. It sounds like.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe what we should do is have a motion to allow Ally to sign that directive. She does nothing unless she gets a directive.
Okay,
So do you know how many people?
it's just, I think it's just me and Bill.
Okay.
I'm gonna meet with her in the morning to give final numbers, days, so.
So what I would do is I'd make a motion to have the chair sign off on this extension of vacation time to be used within 12 months, and the chair can sign the thing to the board.
okay. Second? Second. Okay, all those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Okay.
first 5-0 of the night.
Okay, then our town clerk is away for a couple of days, so I have no report. And then the chair has a couple of things. The library has invited us to a strategic planning meeting, and it's gonna be July 8th. 4 o'clock. At 4 p.m. And everybody's welcome,
Is that
so
the public or just the select board?
I think you could come too.
It's gonna be publicly warned.
It's publicly warned, yeah,
Okay.
and
I think the library board's going to appear as well. I mean, it's an official meeting.
it's an official meeting and we don't have to warn 5 of us coming,
I
so.
think it also, they're gonna talk about the information that they compiled last year. They had received, if I understand it, they had received a grant to do this like strategic plan, and then they spoke with members of the select board, and asked all sorts of different people from town and things like that, just about things about the town, and then they compiled all that data, and I believe that that's what they wanna share with us. And they were specific, saying that we don't need to do anything with the information, but they'd like to share it with us.
What's the date again?
July 8th at 4 o'clock at the library.
Town resident issue, I can say we'll do it.
We need an executive session.
So we have a vote on, we don't need a vote on that, that's just information. Then the next is a town resident issue that we'll take up in executive session at the end of the meeting.
Hold of that.
Yeah.
I would say something, there's a problem. Because it was written on that statute.
Mhm.
That statute is real estate law. And it's real estate.
So we just called from VLCT and asked them.
Law. So my
It should be
suggestion to
fine.
you is put that off until next meeting. Don't even go down that road, because
Okay.
everybody should be able to know at least what that number is.
Okay, we'll clarify that with,
It should be 5 instead of 2.
okay. Okay, so we will table this B until next meeting. Police meeting, this is just a matter of information. Connie and I went last Friday. We were invited to the sheriff's department, and they were talking about possible ways to
Regional policing.
have regional policing as opposed to the model that they have now. And the young officer was very enthusiastic about it. But the nice part of it was that there were a lot of towns there, and a lot of people have concerns and opinions. So it was nice to see other people that kind of shared the same opinions.
The problem with regional policing is that they end up in a town because there's more problems in that town, and that group of people is all they have to respond. So if you I don't think we could come up with 5, but if you had 5, and there's something in Putney, we're on the back burner.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
That was
twists and
brought
turns.
up at the meeting, and there's gonna be follow-up meetings, and we'll all be informed, but we showed that we were interested, and we took notes if anybody wants to see them. The other thing that I had briefly mentioned before is I would like to start having budget meetings sooner rather than later. Maybe pick a topic like trash, which is costing us a lot of money. And maybe before the meetings have selectmen pick an area of the budget that they're concerned with, that they might research, and then come to the meeting with that research. So,
I agree with you. I just think it might be a little bit difficult for a new select person to get that binder and look at it and even come up with anything. I know that having done 2 of them, it's like I felt like I had no idea what any of it was about. Actually, Glenn, I'm glad that you were able to explain so much to the newer select board members, because I've done it twice, so I understand where the budgets come from and what the numbers are and what the percentages are, but I think that people are gonna need to understand that going into another budget season if they wanna be involved, because it's a lot of information.
but I was on the select board 25 years ago, and I remember budget time, and it was like, oh my God, insurance has gotten so high, look, but we don't have time to research it. So something like insurance, trash, different things like that, like the electric bill, we got a bill that each phone is gonna go up $100 a month. You know, so I started calling around to Consolidated just because I was concerned, but if we did that and then came to meetings before we got to like the budget crunch time is what I'm speaking about.
How do we educate the people that have never looked at it before ahead of time? I think something like that, how an informational session on how they can understand how it's even broken down, because it's pretty intense when it's all on paper.
And that's what these budget meetings would be for. But what I'm saying is even before then, kind of pick one that you say, well, mutual aid, look at that price every month, what does that give us? You know, what does, things that you might not understand, delve in and find out, and then come back and talk with the public also. So that was just a thought from this one select person.
I don't disagree with your idea as far as education, but I've done this for 4 or 5 years, and we don't get the numbers in. We need to have the numbers, the insurance numbers, the retirement numbers, the things that they don't care when they get here, they're just dumped on us. Taking and looking at the budget and doing a kind of a pre-meeting would be fine, but you honestly can't do any work without those numbers. Not at all.
No, but we can also get some good ideas from the taxpayers sometimes, things that, because sometimes you're so close to it, you can't see the forest for the trees, you know?
You're busy, Laura?
Didn't I say something about being really awful with numbers?
I know,
I'd be willing to help, but numbers are not my forte.
something that came out of last year's budget season, we were hit with a double-digit increase in our insurance, and we had a lot of questions about how do we, are we taking it, like, are we gonna continue to decide what people's insurance is, or do people have a choice to go up or down on what they want? Like, how do we do this so that people can kind of decide themselves if they wanna take that hit, or if they wanna drop down because they feel like they're not sick, or whatever it is. And that we had talked about the possibility of hopefully members of the public coming forward, and maybe a select board member being on a committee that researched this way ahead of budget season. None of us felt qualified because I don't know enough about insurance. I think we tapped Rob Swagger a little bit, but he had other things going on, and I think that if any member of the public knows about insurance in those ways, maybe that would be a great person to have attend one of these meetings, because that is a humongous issue. Going forward, it's only gonna keep going up. It went up last year, and then it went up crazy this past budget season.
It went down during COVID, believe
Yeah.
it or not, and then we lost all of the COVID back up, and then it went up 10-15%
It
from
was
there.
14 this past
Yeah.
time. It was
And it's
really
gonna go up
hard.
again.
Yep.
Well, why don't we challenge ourselves to each come up with a category that we'd like to look at, and we'll talk about it next meeting. And I don't think that's a motion, I think that's just conversation.
And who would we sit with to get an overview of the budget, of what the categories are?
Connie's been right there the last 2 years.
And I can go over it with you as well. Okay, and now we're on to old business, and it's the V-Trans, we're getting to you, Helen, don't fall asleep.
I'm just waiting very patiently.
Okay, and we have this gentleman, Jeff Nugent, that's going to walk Jeremy through the first round of ditching, 1 out of 2 grants. Do you want to say anything about that, Jeremy?
In the past, this was all covered through our Wyndham Regional payment that we give them every year. Recently, they've changed that. You know, he would do a lot of work with towns to help them get through these grant processes. But now it's not. Now we have to take money out of the grant. What was it, Connie?
Up to $1,500.
Up to $1,500 or 10% or whatever it was. So I'm just asking that Jeff give me a hand on this first round, since I've never done it before, to walk me through the process, and then we should be good to go from there.
So it's a contract with Jeff and Wyndham Regional,
So you'd have to prove that I can sign it.
when they have to approve the contract and then approve.
And the dollar amounts are right here.
So is this a matching funds, or is this the total amount,
What?
the grant?
It's
There's a matching.
Matching funds.
The grant specifically, this one is this the fiscal year 23 that we're, and fiscal year 23, our grant award is $31,000 and requires a 20% match from the town. So, our expenses total $38,750, and I believe that up to $1,500 is part of that match that we're already
Yeah.
required to make.
That,
Yeah.
that's only if we contract that work out. If we keep it in-house, we get full reimbursement with no match, because we're already getting paid anyways, so. Basically, we get reimbursed for equipment time, materials, man hours.
And which way, you don't know yet which way you'll go?
It depends on my schedule.
And it depends on what Jeff says, or?
Depends on what Jeff says. I tentatively scheduled a meeting with him for Thursday, so depending on the outcome of this.
Do we have to sign anything before you talk to him? So,
Yes, I believe so, right, Connie?
That's the contract.
so, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY23 Grants and Aid Program Supportive Work Technical Assistance request brought by Jeremy and Wyndham Regional Commission.
To approve the, enter into a contract.
To enter into the contract to have Jeff, help Jeff Nugent, give Jeremy support on the way through this grant.
Okay.
So if I can just state,
There's been a lot of long-winded motions.
basically,
I know.
it's a motion to approve the contract
Yes.
with Wyndham Regional to have Jeff Nugent consult
Yes.
on the administration of
And
those
to have
grants.
sign.
Yes.
Second.
Oh, yeah, and to have Ally
And have Ally
on behalf of the board.
Yeah, we gotta have that in.
Is there a second?
I seconded it, but earlier,
Okay.
too early. You gotta make, her motion needs to be revised to add in allowing you to sign it on behalf of the board.
Okay.
So can you add that in and then I can second again?
Second, you
Yes.
give us a second.
Yeah, I'd like to, what is the word?
Amend.
My motion to add Ally Evans, to sign on behalf of the select board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Second 5-0.
Then we move along, Helen, you awake?
Yeah.
To the 2024 reappraisal order. Can you tell us in English what this all means?
When a town's COD, which is the coefficient of dispersion, falls below 20% or above 20%, then the state demands that we do a townwide reappraisal. So with the 2023 equalization study, our COD went to 23.41%. So we got a letter from the property tax review saying that we have to do this reappraisal. So we sent out a request for proposal to 5 reappraisal companies, and we got back 3 rejections and 2 no response at all. So I sent the information to Jill Remick, who is the director of the property evaluation and review department, and she said that we are doing our due diligence. There's really nothing we can do right now. In December, the PBR is gonna put out a report of some kind. Part of the problem is that the legislature has changed the rules and the direction for the townwide reappraisals. They're demanding that all towns do a reappraisal every 6 years, but there are not enough companies, reappraisal companies, to handle that amount of work. So the responses we got, they would all not happen until 2029, and they don't want to commit to prices or even just doing the work in 2029 because who knows what the world is going to be like, and they don't know how the tax department is going to handle these changes in the townwide reappraisal process. So right now we're kind of just in limbo, and I don't know what will happen to because we can't get this reappraisal done. Now they're putting out a report in December, I guess, that should help settle the issues that the reappraisal companies have, and we'll give them direction on what to do. But, in the meantime, I really got no idea what will happen.
What do reappraisals usually cost?
They average about $100 to $125 per parcel. We have money in the, in books, because the state sends $8.50 plus $1 for every taxable parcel every year.
So we have where did I see it, $133,710.
Right, and so, I mean, I think that we are well funded. There are other expenses besides just the reappraisal companies. There's a lot of postage and printing that has to happen, because you have to deal with every parcel. And then there can be software expenses if we change the software company that we're using from Nemrick to a different one, because there are other companies out there. But for the time being, so I don't know what we'll do.
So this isn't anything that you can do in-house, you can't find somebody?
No, it has to be done by a state-approved reappraisal company.
Okay.
And there's too much work in Vermont for these approved companies to do.
Okay. So where do we stand now? You'll just report back to us, or?
Yeah, if anything changes, I don't know, I'm assuming that within the next month or two, I'll hear something back from them telling us what to do about the forms that we have to submit, because we can't fill out our RA 308 giving them a detailed plan on what we're gonna do, because we don't have anything that we can do right now.
Do we need to sign this order?
You need to sign the acknowledgement order, right? That you
Reappraisal
received.
order.
It's just acknowledging that you received the notice that they are requesting a 2024 reappraisal.
So, and that's not gonna make us liable that we can't find it?
No, it's just acknowledging that you got the mail.
Okay. So do,
Make a motion that we use that one.
okay, I won't write on it.
Sign
Oh, you did already, but.
the reappraisal order to
Mhm.
indicate that we received the order from the state to do a 2024 reappraisal of town properties.
Who's gonna sign it?
And then
And that would be
signed by,
signed by Ally Evans.
and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we have it, folks. Then let's get past reappraisal, and now we're on to a town equipment loan.
That's Nick, do you want an update?
Nick, would you like to walk us through this?
Yeah, I can give a quick update. I don't have a ton of details to share, but I reached out to follow up with a contact at the Treasury. And so he informed us that we were ultimately approved for the loan, but not for the amount that we requested. I apologize, I don't have the figures in front of me. I believe we had requested something around like 323,000 or something. That's what we were advised to request by the previous contact at the Treasury, who's now retired. And then what came back was an approval for $299,600, and that being because they did not waive the request, the maximum of the 75% of the purchase value. So that $299,600 is 75% of what the greater costs, and they were not going to approve us above that. They were going to maintain that limit.
Okay. Well, thank you for all your hard work on this, Nick.
So there is a promissory note that the select board needs to sign.
Yeah, we have a promissory note right here, and it has 4 payments and obviously a down payment of the 25%, right?
So you don't, but you weren't approved.
Right. So,
What was the original amount that we requested? Nick, I'm sorry, I missed the number of the original amount that we requested for this loan.
I don't have the figure in front of me. I wish I was in a more stable location to do that. I think it was somewhere around 323 or something like that. Maybe it was like 313. So we are a little less, and so that means that we have to make up that amount in a down payment.
Okay.
But that doesn't have anything to do with what we're signing here, but just so that everybody understands. What we're signing here is a promissory note to the state of Vermont to
get the loan.
To get the loan and to pay these amounts on these dates.
So I do just want to clarify though that when we sought out to go for this loan, and we were kind of cross-checking all the numbers with our budgets for FY25, the down payment amount was with that original requested amount that we were advised to submit for. So, you know, again, I wish I had all these numbers in front of me right now. I apologize that I can't have that. But that means that we have to make up that difference in a down payment, which I'm not confident will keep us within the 200,000 that we had approved at town meeting for the equipment reserve. So that's my only concern there. I mean, I imagine that we could potentially pursue a different avenue, but I just want to kind of put that out there for transparency's sake, that this is less than what we were requesting, and therefore we have to make up the difference in a down payment. And so we have to make sure, or we have to be in agreement, you know, whether that is something that we are able to pay.
And this is for the grader?
Correct?
Yes, for the grader.
It says that it should be signed by the appropriate official and returned to the address below no more than 90 days from the receipt of this letter. I don't want to delay the grader, but I wonder if we should wait till next meeting so we can get those numbers. I don't know anyone else's thoughts on that.
See how much.
I'm in a similar boat.
Yeah.
Why don't you make a motion? Do we need a motion to table it?
No,
No.
not the table, just announce the table.
Okay. So I would say that we'll table this until we get further information and firm figures. Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, and then we.
Hey, Alan?
Yeah.
You may want Jeremy to address what that means for the grader.
Holding off until next week, next,
It's gonna put us into another month of rental on the rental.
and what cost is that?
$5,000.
So what he's saying is it's gonna base
Or-
Are you still using it a lot? Is that more of a spring kind of?
Did you have to pay?
Does it have
It's
to
a
be
year round.
Figures kind of.
Does it have to be a month? Like break it up?
I remember that. Do you remember those things that was? And.
What was the question?
25 plus the 60.
My question was, does it have to be a month? Would it be 2 weeks? Would it be 3 weeks? Can we just
And is the grader, it has to be rented every month?
Well, if we say something happened like another rainstorm and we don't have one on hand, it's, yeah, I mean, yes, it's gonna sit some days it won't, but we need it for that emergency situation.
How long is it gonna take to get another one?
The new one is waiting for us, we could take delivery on it tomorrow if we wanted to.
Oh,
What's holding that up?
This,
paying for it.
It's $117,570 more than what town meeting approved. $117,570 based on what's written here.
Well, that's adding up all the years, right?
That's adding up over the years.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And because of the emergency statuses, we were looking at it in a different way.
Well, what were you looking at it as?
Well, you were at that meeting when we discussed this. Do you wanna read those figures, Tommy?
I'm just trying to, this doesn't say. I know. And that's what she raised. It is, this is out of this, so this was fiscal year 25. We came up with $178,000 cost. That was $12,000 for the excavator rental, and that was $166,000 for the grader purchase.
This is old.
I found some of it. I mean, it was a lot of conversations and I took a lot of different notes. I have some of it. This was the proposal we made.
This is pre-decision. Pre-decision purpose.
Shall we move on to the, we can move on to the skate park and then come back to this while we look for this? Unless everybody wants to spend the night.
One thing to do is to look at the motions list and see, I think it's at 5:14 when we approved the grader.
Okay.
So let's look at that.
No, it says that's when we approved the gazebo funds.
Should be a grader.
Oh, here, the municipal loan program authorized Evans to sign on behalf of the board. Lake seconds the motion. So that's
So
when we
it's
signed,
5:14,
but it
right?
doesn't give us the dollar amount.
Well, so then you look up, let's look up the packet.
Oh, Connie, do you prefer to stay on this until we get it done?
Your choice, I can.
Or move on to the skate park proposal?
There's people waiting for that.
That's what I was thinking also. So I have here in front of me,
This longer, but I think you skipped one.
7 pages of skate park proposal. Some of the board members have only seen it today, so it's a lot to digest. How do we want to proceed with this, folks? I mean, I have several suggestions and thoughts I can throw out there if we want to go that way.
Let's hear your suggestions, because this is, I read through it. I haven't been to
Would
this.
you like us to talk about it, because we're here?
Yep, you can in one moment. My one suggestion is, the town does not donate land in the past. It hasn't donated land in the past. When we did in the past entertain recreation, there was a recreation committee and it would be done under the town. So it wouldn't be giving land away and then having a separate entity operating that land. So that's the one thing that I saw in this that I went, this is different.
I don't believe we're allowed to
Right.
sell it outright, but
And
there's also some other uses for this property that are already.
Right. And then the other thing that I had in mind and then I'll turn it over to you folks to talk, is that we do already have a recreation committee. And it might be interesting to have the recreation committee work with the skate park people under the auspices of the select board. And you've done a lot of work, but I'm not sure.
How do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't you guys present and then we'll discuss?
Well, my name is Keith Powers. I've been living here for about 5 years now.
Hi, Keith.
Hi. I built skate parks all over the world before moving here, and a few years ago met Howie and Nader and several others, and thought what better idea than try to get one going in our own town that we're going to be most likely living here a long time. I don't know. Have you guys read through the proposal? Or would you
I
like me to-
have read through it, and you put a lot of work into it, and I applaud you for that.
Yeah, kind of what, it is a kind of bizarre proposal, much different than the ones I make. I own a construction company, so this is a very different, but we thought a sort of, kind of like a trade-off. You guys help us acquire land, we'll do all the rest, which is a lot, and I want you guys to see this as a gift. Other towns, if they didn't have a group like us who are offering all this guidance, support, and planning, that same skate park in the concept design that I made, that could cost up to $1 million easily. And it does, and many other new skate parks that are popping up around New England. So my company we are the only regional New England based company building skate parks, and we are offering reasonable prices and community effort to get these built. So in our committee that we made, we felt the best plan of action, since the town does own a lot of land that is beautiful and that no one seems to, I heard that this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. Well, is it really? I don't know. That's why we chose 3 sites with help of other people.
And they were
in
3
town.
sites all in the same general
Pretty
vicinity?
similar area, just because there's very good things about those sites that would work. It's a walking distance from Leland and Gray. In the center of town, these roads aren't really safe for people to walk on or bike on, like Route 35 or 30. So I mean, this seems like the best case scenario. So this is what we're offering, and we hope that this can at least get this started and the talk going. And if you guys have suggestions, then let's talk about it. Let's get this thing rolling. This recreation committee, I don't know anything about that. Where are they located? Do they have sites? Like what?
Well, we have appointees that, we have things from dog catcher to planning board to recreation committee. And they deal with everything recreation, and they work under the select board, report to us. So if they were to work with you, they would say, we met with blah, 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 and these are the pluses and the minuses, and this is what we're negotiating. And this is a final proposal that we all feel good about, something like that.
So we're just going straight to the source right now.
Well, I know, but
I was on the select board and I love working with community outreach. I think it's a passion of mine. And Keith and I are working in tandem with how to make this happen, just in terms of what our community desires, and has reached out in hopes that he would be the one that could build this because of his background. And I think Maybe it is unusual to donate land, but is it really a donation if it's for a community cause? I think it's worth
But then does it
considering.
have to be donated? Could it be under the auspices of town?
Sure.
You know, I mean, these are things we can talk about.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern for me is just that like it get taken into a different direction, and I think if it's controlled into just its own entity, skate park entity, I think it could kind of spiral out and be a many-year project and maybe lose interest. But the proposal incorporates a memorial aspect of it because one of the people interested in helping to fund the organization lost their son, who was a skateboarder, and he was also a Townshend Farmers Market attendee and performing artist. And I think that's part of like the sensitivity in the timeline is that like we have funding available, we wouldn't need to ask for taxes. It's something that we have a person who lives here is eager and excited to do. I think it'd be great to check in with another committee. That sounds totally doable, whatever it takes to make something fun for kids to use.
And Christina Wright are on the committee, and they're both very approachable people to work with.
We know them.
My gut reaction when I read it was I loved it. I liked what it would do for the community. I liked that it would give kids something good to do.
Yes.
And
But we just received it.
and we just barely received it, and also, I don't think we can legally give land away, and the second, but when I heard give land away, then you'd be in charge of the insurance, and insurance is a big piece today too, so there's a lot of things moving parts to think about, and I think if you get with Alanka, and set up some time, as chair, I'd be happy to attend any of those meetings if you wanted me to. There are other, I have a whole folder of town properties. One of the properties that I love the best is the one that leads down to the Harmonyville store in the back, and nobody hardly knows about it, and it's beautiful land.
The gravel pit area?
Well, it's sort of the gravel pit area, but it's like along Route 30 and all of that, and probably 20 years ago, somebody wanted to make a walking path because Harmony Hill is so dangerous to walk on. And if we did recreation there, it might not muddy up fire department or other people's ideas over there, and it might develop a piece of land that's beautiful as well. So it might be good for you folks to get all the information.
Sure, I think the one thing that I just wanted to note on is that the property where the fire department wants to put their space can 100% coincide with this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a way further away from Route 30 in the very, very back corner that we had actually feasibly studied.
200 acres in
I
that.
don't know that there's 200 acres there.
I mean,
When
I
I
have a
looked at
tax
that, I was
map.
like, 200 acres.
Yeah, that's what Alinka gave us as the map, but who knows?
Are you
I
talking
mean,
about Taft Meadows?
Taft Meadows is 20, and that's the big one. And, I don't know if you're talking about the cemetery but I don't think it's 200 acres, but that's not what we really need to talk about right now.
Yeah, there's, I think.
Yeah, I'm talking about all together.
All three parcels.
Right, with the trail connecting them and everything. That's the tax map that I saw said.
Wow.
Well, I debate that, but that's not really what we need to talk about right now. We need to talk about what next steps are for you, and next steps really should be contact Alanka. We'll tell.
We have been in contact.
Yes, that's how we got here.
But
She sent me there. You're telling me to go back to her. I mean,
We can
I'd
definitely
love to,
work
but
with her for sure. I think that the concern that I have is that the woman who wants to donate for this specific park may not necessarily want a walking trail or want an entire recreation space for the entire town. So I just want to compartmentalize how. That's why we formed a skate park committee just to do this one.
A members only thing?
No,
absolutely.
No, but skating at your own risk does allow for liability issues to be waived.
So what are your guidelines gonna be? Well, who can be part of it, who can't?
Anyone can.
no, that's not what she meant by that statement.
Oh,
I think you misunderstood that statement.
Definitely misunderstood that. It's a
Professionally built skate park as well is, it's a total enter at your own risk. There's no way to, I guess, sue somebody for getting injured on a professionally built, adequate skate park. They have to sign anyone? No, not necessarily.
How long have you lived in Vermont?
5 years.
Okay.
I've been in
That guy
Maine
sitting
my whole life.
beside of you can sue you and be successful if you're interference in whatever he's doing. So don't come to that type of thing. You put this thing up, it's gotta be covered by insurance, and enter at your own risk doesn't work. So there's a lot more that you gotta do. And believe me, the person that's the plaintiff in this state wins the majority of the time.
How does any other public skate park in our state operate?
Like
There's not a single
Brattleboro.
one where you have to sign in.
They have to be covered by
You
insurance.
built Brattleboro, you worked on Brattleboro's, and also Wardsboro Skate Park, there's
I
plenty in
just
our
built
surrounding towns.
I built Ludlow last year. There's no signing. There's no.
Oh, but I'm sure they have adequate insurance.
The only it's actually less insurance that's required than having a playground or football. It's
The only
from
thing
all
I
my
want-
research. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying all
The
my
only thing
research.
I want to caution you about is that's a big component. I mean, that's bigger than even the land component, is liability. We are under the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns as our liability insurer. And if it's going to be a town operation, they have to be covered. And if they're not, it gets shut down. So your idea is great, and I'm sure that it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but be careful about that particular point, especially in this state.
I did a lot of my research, but I'll get further research for you guys. I mean, and if I am wrong, I'll admit it.
You don't have to do that. What you need to do is do what Ally said, is get with Alenka in the committee and form some kind of a core so you're all working together. I don't need to know, how many board feet are in this damn thing, or how much concrete, or any of those things. What I need to know that it's safe, that it's gonna be covered by insurance, that you have a track record, a professional track record if you're the one that's building it. Those are the things we need at the end, okay?
If they own it, the town doesn't own it.
They're the liability, you are right. The liability is in
Right, but
Yeah.
again, we said that the town is not in the business of giving
We could sell it.
land away. We could sell it.
Okay, well, how, can I ask the question, how was the community garden acquired?
The community garden was not owned it was owned by the town,
Okay,
But
anyone can garden there, right? And anyone can get hurt with a fork or a spade? Okay.
And we did have insurance. We did have it discussed with the insurance agency.
Okay, just curious. I have a suggestion. And this might come later in your committee, but I think that it would be helpful to get an understanding of how this functions in Manchester and how this functions in Brattleboro, like how the idea, and this information is probably available if they received any type of grant or anything like that, how they went from public land turning into something usable by the general public, maybe. I think it could answer a lot of these kind of things that are popping up right now. I know that you can go through the forms of freedom of information and all of this, but I find that I call a town clerk and they give me some information. So maybe it would be helpful to try to find out how Manchester went about it, not every single piece of information, but maybe some of this pertinent stuff, and maybe how Brattleboro did it, and it might help us know how to do it.
Did Wardsboro do it?
Wardsboro has had one for a long time, and they're in the process of rejuvenating. Are they still doing that? I'm not sure.
I think what we're learning is that a lot of towns, when it sort of falls into the hands of the town, that it becomes a different entity.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, the design profile of how the park itself is built becomes a different animal to navigate. And so I think the donation part of this proposal was in an effort for us to propose this beautiful design that Keith has professional background doing, so that you can understand the gravity of how easy it is to have this wonderful person here to support it. And what we've learned, what Keith has also worked on a lot of those individual parts, and he can share his experience, is that it can be a really sticky machine to allow it to be this huge open.
I mean, Brattleboro should have been 4 times the size for the amount of money that they put in.
And they worked
got
7 years?
insane amount of
Yeah,
time. I
to get
heard
that
over 10.
Yeah.
You know,
By the time the
big,
kids.
big corporations got involved, and I think
We're happy to
I think
bring more
contracts were
info,
signed
but
before they
we
knew
wanna
what
do
they were
something
doing.
different.
And I don't want that to happen to
You've got
anyone.
to start. Now, I think you've got to start. This is obviously good information. It needs to move a little bit more. You know, like Ali said, you know, get in touch with, kind of put together a core group so that we can answer some of these questions. You know, the one in front of you will be happy to help.
Okay, and then Connie, did Connie run away on us?
Out of power.
Are we back onto the,
Yep.
Thank you, by the way.
Sure, and also you guys consider what that means for the future. If someone comes to you as a community member wanting to donate something for public use, I think that that's worth y'all meditating about and seeing how that resonates for somebody who actually is young and excited and wants to do something fun for the community, fun for kids. How to like encourage that to happen, you know? How's that feel?
And I will leave business cards next to maybe the senators. Take a look at the website.
Okay.
I think our work speaks for itself.
And it's not that we're not encouraging you, it's not that we don't wanna have it here. I think it's a great idea. And I applaud you for all the work.
I know that it wasn't gonna be a yes or no.
Okay, good.
There's no way. This is just to start get this going.
Get it
It's
started.
gotta start somewhere.
Okay, and you're welcome to stay and listen to greater talk.
Thanks.
So, this is the $90,000 that I remember. Greater, apply for loan for the greater with down payment of $90,000. And to my math, that would be the $65,000 first payment and the $66,000 first payment and the $25,000 that was. Are you folks following my thinking?
Not at all, but I'm okay.
Okay, midway down, it says backhoe grader, and then at the bottom of that, total cost of $163.
Okay.
Okay, grader, apply for a loan with the grader. So a loan, and the down payment would be $90,000. So of that, the $90,000 is gonna be the $65,000 plus the $25,000 that we have to come up for the down payment.
my understanding was that the 90,000 was, and Nick can also weigh in here, 90,000 was just a down payment. Then we have to include the actual installment. There was 2 things that we were gonna have.
But I thought the down payment's only $25,000. Isn't that what he just said?
And the down payment is the balance of the loan. The balance of the total purchase price of what the loan doesn't cover.
What is the total purchase price?
$399.9.
So 400,000 minus, they don't add these up, of course.
Almost 200.
Nick, I believe that I have sent you the documents that we're looking at.
You did. I'm just not able to open it right now. There have been some issues accessing documents from my email. But with that amount, with the amount that Jeremy just confirmed for the total, that's around 100,300 for the down payment. And we could do a quick calculation on that first loan payment as well, because that'll be slightly less than what we were estimating since it's a lesser amount. So let me just look at that really quick. getting 5,251.32 for a monthly, so by 12, that would be a $63,015.84. That would be the new loan payment annually. For
Could you say that again? Sorry.
Yeah, so the new annual loan payment, this is not the down payment. The down payment is that 100,300. The new loan payment would be $63,015.84. That should be slightly less than what we were initially estimating. So not sure if that offsets the increase in the down payment though.
Question about this. We have $200,000 that is available in July. What happens on July 2026 if the town meeting members say no?
That's built into agreements, either the loan or the leases.
But the town
We had
meeting can say no.
Right, and I understand that you had then, if we had this discussion at several board meetings, that the lease agreements and the loan, not the loan notes, but the lease agreements allow you to opt out.
Okay.
Correct. And then because this is an emergency situation, I believe by statute, we are empowered to act and to approve to go into a loan of this type to make sure that we're able to, cover our necessary services for the road maintenance. But, absolutely, this has to be approved at town meeting regardless and brought to the townspeople.
And it's not $63,000 a month, it's a one-time yearly payment of $63,000, right? And that there's a down payment, and then there's a yearly payment, I believe. Is that fixed, that yearly payment?
I just went to kind of a loan calculator, so it should be right about that. I know for the current loan that we have out, when we entered to a loan agreement 5 years ago, it fluctuated just by like tens of dollars. So we should expect about that $63,000 annual for the grader for the next 5 years.
But
Starting with this fiscal year coming up.
But Nick, you saw that on the promissory note, it says that on June 30th, 2025, there's an installment payment of $65,912 on the promissory note.
Okay, yeah, I had not gotten a chance to see that promissory note yet. I was just going off of the $299,600 and put that into the calculator. But if that's the case, right, then kind of incrementally it might be a little bit lower the following years.
Yep.
But yeah.
So the V-Trans alone came in under what we requested for the total. We're still looking around for, what, $24,000? Where would that come from?
But is this what we're paying?
Special town meeting, we could try to work out of the budget.
By statutes, and I can't quote the exact statute right now, but I can definitely come prepared next meeting. By statute, we are able to kind of borrow in excess of what was approved for emergency situations as this. So it is possible, but I just want, everyone to be aware that if we do go over, that's what we're going to have to do, or go through a different route, for example, a lease. But I just kind of want to make sure that we have all the information up front.
So
That would not be considered an emergency, would it?
what would not be considered an emergency? I didn't understand what you said.
He says taking the loan, getting another loan for the greater emergency, yeah.
Well, we had no grader.
We have to rent it at $5,000 a month. Right, but purchasing a grader is not an emergency. That was a want that the town wanted, or that the town, it's a need. It's a need, it's a want, it's not an emergency.
Well, if we
I'm just saying, I feel like that loan would not.
So what I will say about the emergency nature, I'm sorry. Did I speak over anyone?
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, what I will say about the emergency nature is that, as Jeremy has pointed out to us in the past, that this is a very critically necessary piece of equipment. And so since it broke down unexpectedly, we did not budget ahead of that. So we need to make an emergency acquisition of some sort, whether that is a rental, whether that is going into a lease, whether it's going into a purchase. But this would fall kind of under that emergency situation. So that's kind of what we mean by is that we do not have a critically necessary piece of equipment to maintain our town roads.
And we went through all the different possibilities for how to achieve the 3 pieces of equipment needed.
Let's stop the conversation, folks. Yeah, go ahead.
We went through an extensive amount of deliberation, trying to figure out how we could acquire all 3 pieces of equipment while staying under the $200,000 amount that was approved by the town. And so we for this lease and for this V-Trans loan. And we hoped that they were going to give us $323,000, is it, Nick?
Yeah.
And instead it came in at $299,600. So we're short, essentially, about $24,000.
Something to consider is that if we have to keep on renting a backhoe at $5,000 a month, we're shelling out $60,000 over the course of a year, which is almost our payment.
So let me speak to that. We will not be able to rent this machine forever because it is somebody's machine and they're gonna need it back sooner. I've had it longer than I told him we were gonna have it, so he's gonna need that machine. We got a really good deal on this machine. If we were to rent a new grader through, say, one of the Cat or John Deere dealerships, it'll be twice as much per month.
I'm on your side.
So something needs
It
to.
doesn't seem financially feasible to rent something
No.
for that much.
That's what I was saying, you could cut it, for less than a month.
How much money came?
A week, you need a week.
How much money came in from FEMA for the last storm?
We've only gotten in 50%, a little over 50%.
So we're still waiting for another 50.
There's also the possibility of moving away from the loan and moving towards a lease on the grader. There's also the possibility of not renting the excavator and seeing with Jeff Nugent's help how to do the work that the grant requires without an excavator. I'm just throwing out.
Things that we've been batting around.
You will see that Jeremy just sent us the information on renting the grader versus purchasing the grader.
Leasing.
I'm sorry, leasing, not renting.
That was the original thing
Right,
that
that
when
was
Jeremy
your-
and I had
right,
met a
didn't it?
lot. That was it. When we had met a bunch of times leading up to making a proposal for what we were gonna do about a bunch of this equipment, we had proposed the possibility of leasing the grader so that,
It's a higher interest.
it's a higher interest rate. It does allow you to leave if it did not get approved at town meeting,
It's also a lot less money up front.
a lot less.
A lot less, like half. More than half.
Yeah.
Just under $80,000.
Under 80?
How much can we get for scrap for the 2 pieces of junk?
I've been actually approached by some people that are interested in it, so I think we'll have to put it out to bid, sealed bid. I mean, it's got $15,000 worth of brand new rubber on it, so.
You don't think it would be enough you couldn't generate enough selling those to cover the difference?
Well,
even in part?
the dealerships John Deere's not even giving us a trade-in value on it. Cat was gonna give us $20,000. This is the issue with running your machines into, beyond where they're worth anything for trade. This is why we set up the capital plan, so we can get our equipment on a good rotation. Get money for them while they're still worth something.
Another catch-22?
Okay, so where do we stand, folks?
The biggest concern I have is that dollar sign, you know, at the end, everything's gotta fall into the right places for it to work. And what happens if it goes sideways? Where are we stuck? We're stuck with a pretty substantial bill with no money to pay for it. So, yeah. I know you guys have worked this through and over and over and over again, but I'm still hearing that there's that potential for a problem. That's why I asked you about the FEMA money, because that's
Elaine says we cannot factor that into any kind of, that's a reimbursement for money that's already
we've already
laid out.
paid for it, so it should be fine.
Well,
We
she
don't
says
owe
she says it goes into a line item that we don't touch because it's there for reimbursement. Because we've had that conversation.
Well, we can research if she's correct in that.
How do we spend money out of the budget that we have?
Well, the way I understand it is we have line items and we try to stick within our line items when we're buying or spending money, and then we put it on a warrant and it's approved by the board. These big expenses like this in an emergency situation, we do the best we can, and then we find out that, you know, it's $25,000 more. And so
I would like us just to review the numbers a little bit, because I could be off on what I'm calculating, but I think that'd be helpful for us just to review the numbers. So if we are talking, and somebody needs to correct me if I'm wrong, Nick or Katie or Jeremy, if we were to get the loan and we have to make $103,000 down payment,
Correct.
and we have an annual payment of $65,912,
Correct.
that brings us to $168,912. Then you add on a $35,000 backhoe lease payment, because there's only one in fiscal year 25. Then you I'm coming up with $203,912. So am I wrong on that?
You're off by 3,000 only. The down payment would be 100,300 because the total cost was 399.9 and the approval was 299.6. So
wait a minute. So the down payment is $100,300.
correct.
So that's even less.
So by your numbers, we would only be over by $90. I think you said.
So
I don't understand what the problem is.
So I look at it that the 100,000 is our first year payment and the 65 is basically our second year payment because it's at the.
No, because it both happens in
Fiscal year 25.
I know, but it's a year from now.
Okay.
But the 100,000 will not repeat. That's only one time as a down payment.
So I just want to, because I'm a little slow on this, let's just add the numbers up again. So we are talking, so everybody's clear. If we take the loan, the 2% loan, we have a down payment in fiscal year 25 of $100,000 and $100,300. I never said it.
$100,300.
And then we have the $65,912 annual installment. That brings us to $166,212. Am I right? 912. 166,912. Katie's usually good at correcting my math. And then
166,212.
166,212.
But you already bought the trailer out of that 200,000 too, right?
No, that's in fiscal year 24. Talking about fiscal year 25, where we have that $200,000 capital fund. Okay, so 166,212,000 for the loan, plus the $35,000 lease payment brings us to $201,000. Someone wanted to say that $201,212. So if I'm hearing this correctly, if we don't rent the excavator, if we forego the excavator, then we are $1,212 over the capital fund that was approved by the residents. But that's only if we eliminate the excavator. If we have the excavator, then you add another 12,000, and that makes us, to me, is more substantial.
What's the total number?
If we add the excavator, it is $213,212 with the excavator. But maybe Ted Nugent, what Jeremy has said, that if you eliminate the excavator, it handicaps the road crew. It will take longer to do the work that needs to go towards the 2 ditching grants. But maybe there's a way to do it, to rearrange. I mean, I don't know the workflow or the.
So, we can do the ditching with the backhoe, but the reason we were going towards the excavator is the backhoe is not the proper machine for doing that type of work.
And then you're beating on
And you're beating on a brand new piece of equipment, which we were trying to get away from. Or the other option is to contract those 2 projects out, which therefore we have to do it, what is it, 20%, Connie?
Yeah.
20% match, which we did not budget for.
What happens if you go with the excavator and the grader and don't go with the backhoe this time?
We've already gone with the backhoe.
Oh, it's here?
The
You tell me it's
backhoe.
here? It's a little late for that.
Well, we haven't signed anything yet. He's pushing up, he's doing a 30-day net on us, so we're not into this year.
Well, what's the
That would be a $35,000 savings if we forego the backhoe.
this
Then I
year?
gotta bring the old one back and get it repaired for $15 or whatever,
But
$1,000
do you
or
need it-
$20,000.
You need it with the excavator. That's not what I'm asking you.
Well, the excavator is just a rental.
Okay.
Till supposed to be here Monday, till, I think I have it till the end of September.
So then there was this suggestion that we go with the loan, we go with the backhoe, and we go with the excavator, which kicks us to a cost of $213,212, right?
So we're off by 13,012.
Right, so then the thought was our special projects that has been budgeted for fiscal year 2025. That's $57,750. And do we take 14 of that and put it towards the excavator rental?
For the special projects.
Which means you don't do some of the special projects, and the special projects that we had
Well, I
were.
had $20,000 culverts alone,
So it was culverts, it was paving the Stone Orange Bridge Road, back Wyndham Road in that area. Yes, it was in there, and it was paving some of Route 35, which we could push off.
That's a whole separate line item. Paving is a whole separate line item. So I had $20,000 for gravel, $20,000 for culverts. I forget what else I had in there. Concrete headers.
Okay, so what I would also just like to add is that we were not real clear about grants when we were doing this budget. Remember, Steve left, we were really not clear. We did not factor in any grant money from V-Trans. We didn't factor in the 2 ditching grants. Because we didn't understand where we were at, remember that?
Yep.
So there was revenue that we did not, now again, it's matched revenue,
Right,
which
it's
means
a
we do have to
reimbursement,
make
so-
we have to make some payment towards it.
But does it do the 13,000?
Yes, we would get, I think but again, the problem is that it's a reimbursement, you gotta spend the money to get the money, but it is revenue that we did not factor in.
Right, the 13,000 would be basically we'd get paid back for it at the end of these projects. The rental fee.
Because it's not in the budget. Like we would know what our grant money was and we would put it in the budget. We didn't know it because Steve had left, so it's not in here.
Jeremy, the plowing that we get paid for Wardsboro and Jamaica?
Just Jamaica.
Just Jamaica? Is there any other state gives us money for anything?
Well, we get,
'Cause that usually was around $100,000.
But that's already been factored in the
That's
budget.
okay.
yeah, we get our state aid. But we actually get aid from Jamaica because we do a section of the road. I'm not sure how much we charge them. I just break down the dates and then Elaine takes care of the rest. So I don't know what, it's $3,000 in the budget, but I don't know what the,
We put 5,000 in the budget for fiscal
you
year,
know, I don't know what we charge them.
for fiscal
And
year.
we don't even know if it's come in.
And how far off are the budget numbers to year to date? You have a print on
I
year to
didn't
date?
need to run a report on that. We're over in fiscal year 24, we have well overspent. We are way over the budget. We were using that $180,000 surplus, and hopefully we did not blow through that. Hopefully there's some left of that, but we were using the surplus to cover the unforeseen expenses.
There's
Well,
also
we know what's gonna happen.
there was stuff for insurance reimbursements that wasn't factored in, so.
So I mean, so there is the concept of either just scrapping the excavator and then putting more wear and tear on the backhoe that we would not normally want to put on. There is the thought of using some of the special projects money to cover the cost of the excavator rental to bring us back down to the $1,200 that we would be over.
So, do we need to pick one?
1,200 or 12,000?
No, so if we get rid of the excavator,
Okay.
then we're only over the 200,000 mark by $1,200.
Okay, got it.
When you add the excavator, then we're over 13,000.
Well, the only suggestion I have is pull a print of the budget and where it's at and see if you can rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, there may be some extra money in other places.
Well, except that fiscal year of 24 is closing, and we know we have well overspent the highway budget for fiscal year 24. So what we're trying to do is look at where to pull the funding from the budgeted fiscal year 25, which we haven't even gotten into yet.
Okay.
I think that's the way to look at it, but
Well, that one was pretty lean. There wasn't a lot of extra in FY 25.
well, no, the highway budget had.
Oh, yes, we built up some of the,
We built up quite a bit, but we do believe it's lean in the sense that it's a real budget and
Yeah.
it's not, you know,
I remember.
numbers that we haven't evaluated in years. But there is revenue that we didn't account for because we didn't know about the grant money, right? That is revenue that we have not accounted for in fiscal year 25's budget.
Well,
But that's a reimbursement. We gotta spend it to,
are these thousands of dollars or?
well, there's $1 grand for 31,000.
I think it's 51,000.
It's what we just addressed in this packet, right?
It's 51,000, and there is a matching part to it.
If we contract it out. We do all the work in-house.
And the
We get
incentive
full-
was really to try not to contract.
Yeah.
One for quality of work and for the match.
Will any of that help that $13,000 offset?
Yes.
I would think it would.
And
Well,
how long will it
the
take?
grant will cover the rental.
Okay. So there's your $13,000 offset.
So I think we should proceed with the 213.
I'm real leery about not having that looking at a piece of paper, but there's no way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we either cut that thing out and then whatever happens, or.
But the other option is to trust that we're gonna be able, that the grant money that we haven't accounted for will help offset that. Worst case scenario is we go to the special projects budget and we just don't do some special projects. Like we take a hit on that this year to know that we're gonna have the money.
Well, we do have another option. It's not a popular option, but if we backed out of the loan and we leased the excavator, we don't have $100,000 of a down payment. We basically have a $400,000 piece of equipment plus interest divided by 5, which we'd have to find out what that would cost, but
I sent this, Connie has the email.
right, and then in that way, and I'm not saying this is ideal, I'm just saying that this was one of the scenarios that we had come up with leading up to these decisions. That takes us going over this $200,000 and actually puts us under by somewhere around, I'll be conservative, $50,000, and it would have a higher yearly payment, I'm assuming, than this $65,000, but I thought it was gonna be about 80 a year or something like
Yep,
that.
this is 78,466.
78 a year, which if we
72
still have
months.
$64,000 in our capital fund going into next year with this option of this lease where if we said we needed to back out, we can completely back out, it just feels to me like that's the safest way to go about this.
That's a 6-year lease.
Is it 6 years?
Versus,
5.
what, 72 months.
Oh, it says, okay, it says,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 6-year lease.
It's 6 years instead of 5, and
And you own it at the
you
end.
And the
have,
loan was for 5 years?
you can choose to own it or you can choose to trade it in and get another one. And this is only coming from a place of not wanting to go over that $200,000 and also not wanting to eat up the whole thing in one
So
year.
can I speak to that lease a little bit?
Please do.
The reason why the lease payment's so high this time around is because we don't have a trade-in.
Okay.
So if we continue to lease, and if we decide not to keep the machine and trade it in, we will get good value for the machine that's going in for trade. And that payment comes down for the next one, and so on and so forth. And at some point it'll flatline, but
So you mean
What's
after
the
6
back?
years, we buy it for $1 or something and then we trade it in?
or just trade it in for another lease.
But if we don't own it, we only leased it, how do we trade it in?
They give you credit for not beating the hell out of it.
Right.
Oh,
If
okay,
it's-
I didn't know.
You know, if you're trading them, turning them over, they're gonna give you high value for them. And, you know, my dad just traded one in Guilford that was 10 years old, he got $270,000.
And did he own it or did he lease it?
They pay cash for all their stuff. That's why he's had a capital plan set up for years. So they rotate their trucks in and out, their equipment. Trucks are 7 years, equipment's 10 to 11, 12.
So what's the bad and not popular? I think you said it.
Okay, I'll just say it, I suggested it several times, but everybody wanted to do the lease, or the loan because it had lower interest, I respect that as well. But I thought that not having this down payment made more sense in keeping wiggle room in the $200,000 capital fund so that we could move that forward next year or deal with another emergency as they seem to come our way a lot lately.
That could use a lot of your bill.
So that's
So
why
can
that was.
Can I ask something, this, and again, all of us are new to this, but to me the question is what's that 6.85% gonna translate into? And if you take the 166,212, which is your $100,000 payment plus your $65,000 installment, and you subtract out the 78,000, right, 466, which is the lease payment for 1 year, there's a difference of $76,000. Is that what we would be concerned about, not paying more in interest? Like what's the tipping point is I guess what I'm saying, you know what I mean? It would feel like it's 76,000, that we don't want to pay more than 76,000 in interest because that's the difference between the down payment. That's the difference between the cost of the
total cost of the down payment and all the loan payments compared to the total cost of all lease payments.
Okay, do that.
Is there any downside to you? For you? Lease or buy it or,
I mean, we gotta maintain the thing regardless.
you know?
I mean, it basically leasing is we own it. I mean, we don't own it. I mean,
Just like a car,
It's just like a car, you gotta maintain it, we still gotta pay for all our consumables, services, all that stuff, so.
Well, with cars, you get a mileage, a lot of leases give you a mileage.
So there's programs you could finance in a maintenance plan, which is extra money, of course, to have them come and do all the major services. So there's no mileage on it, no hours or no nothing. I mean, as it is, us as a municipality, we're getting a huge discount on these machines. I mean, the dealerships are only making 2% on retail, on cost, compared to what, if they were selling to Joe Blow off the street.
That's why they want the lease ones back. They make their money on
Yeah,
this.
exactly, it's where they make their money on this stuff, is the municipal leases.
I'm not sure where we stand.
Well, I'm leaning towards the lease thing, because it's gonna keep us well under $200,000. I'm just really concerned about that level starting out.
Me too.
I'm concerned about that, and we could, at town meeting, go and re-look at purchasing. We could live for a year with the lease.
I think we gotta look at it the entire time. 6 years, 5 years?
6 years, 72 months.
Yeah, I think you have to take it for the entire time and decide on the bottom line.
No, we can opt out.
Can you opt out?
Yeah.
That's why we're putting with the lease on the backhoe, that's why we were looking into the lease programs.
Okay.
In case they do decide not to agree to continue paying for these things.
Okay.
And we were very thorough in doing the research on that. Nick went over the lease agreements. We can opt out at any time.
Well, if we can opt out at any time, then that's the way to go. We're saving a ton of money off the top. And
I
see,
like I said, I have some other stuff that is in dire need of repair, so we can take some money out of that.
Because it costs $420,000 total
For what?
for the grader, if you get it by the lease rather than buy it outright.
So we're talking $20,000.
Brian, good night.
Thanks, Brian. Good night.
You're talking $100,000, $120,000 more
So
total.
it's $52,000 versus.
420 or 520?
So it's $52,000, I'm sorry, it's $52,000 more, but in that first year, it's a difference of 76.
I don't know if it's the right way to say that it is $52,000 more, but at least we have somewhere around $50,000 for all this other stuff instead of going even further over the
6%,
Right, so one way of saying is that it's $52,000 more over the course of 6 years. But in the first year,
A lot of them do this
$76,000
because they just keep rolling their equipment.
to not go over $200,000.
Yeah.
And if they'll take them back, leases,
I mean, I felt like.
especially with that deal, that they'll take it back anytime.
Because they know, you know why that is? Because they know they can sell that machine tomorrow.
Yeah.
Almost what the
Almost
sticker
full
price is.
price, yeah.
Okay, so can we just, so the numbers, the question is, in my opinion, what's the impact of 6.85% interest over 6 years, right, versus a 2% interest over 5 years, but a much larger upfront cost. So Kate and I think we did the numbers, and we think that if we go with the loan versus in the first year of the loan versus the first year of the lease, there's a $76,000 difference, right? The loan in the first year is $76,000 more expensive than taking a lease in the first year. So that's the $76,000. We'd have to come up with, it shoots us over the $200,000. In terms of the lease, we believe that over the course of 6 years, the lease is $50,000 more expensive than the loan over the course of 6 years. So you're
$50,000 per year or $50,000
total.
Total.
So $50,000 more expensive over the course of 6 years. Total cost.
Because of the interest.
Because of the 6.8. So the question is, how do you look at these numbers? You could look at the numbers and say, we have $200,000 approved in the first year. We can't take such a big hit in the first year, which is that $76,000 hit. Whereas we could space out the $50,000 hit over 6 years.
Or
Over 6, 5 or 6, it's 6 years. but
Or we could say, we can revisit this next year, because we can opt out of the lease.
My understanding is you opt out when you don't get the town meeting approval. Can we just opt out at any time?
I'm pretty sure it's any time.
Okay.
I thought I read that it was.
Okay.
So,
I mean, you're
I
paying,
mean,
you're paying, it's an optional payment every year, right? That's, if you can opt out, it's, you know, you're paying for that year up front.
so we could look at it 3 different ways. We can go with the 213 and try to get it from the other revenues. So that's one option. We could go with the lease and lease it for 6 years, or we could go with the lease and say, let's lease it, but let's revisit it.
That's the safest thing,
I
because
agree.
right now, if we go over that 200,000, that we don't know where it's coming from the 2025 budget, I know across the scale, it's pretty lean. There was a lot of crap that we cut out of it. So you can't depend on the 25 budget to make up that hole anywhere, or something else is gonna suffer.
And if these last 4 months have been anything, they've been filled with emergencies.
Yes.
So my suggestion would be go with the lease at the 6-year window, and then let's see what town meeting will do next year.
Sherwood, I agree with you.
There's always first time for everything.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would agree with her anytime soon. But she actually has.
So I just want to make sure I
behaviors
understand the 3 options, because it'd be nice to reflect what our options are in the minutes.
That we have the loan and we go
We
13.
have the loan and the backhoe and the excavator at $213,000 and change. And then we find the money somewhere in other budgetary items or revenues. Second option is that we lease the grader for 6 years and understand that we're gonna pay $50,000 more, but we're gonna have more flexibility in how we
Spread
have
out
to
over the
pay, make the payments.
But no equity.
But what?
No equity.
Oh,
Because we own it at the end, he said.
You can choose to own
You
it.
can shoot it, you buy it for,
Then you buy it.
Then you buy
for
it.
$1. It's, yeah. Once you made those 6 payments, they basically, the machine is yours.
Because if you,
But that is
It's a lease to own, it's a lease to own program.
but if you're buying it, if we're buying it, in 2 years, we would have half that machine would be paid for.
Yes.
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 But at what cost now? You know,
Well,
We
it's
don't-
13,000.
right.
It's
It's
13,000.
$13,000 over.
Well, we could
No,
also,
with no
It's a good
wiggle room
point.
for
It's a
any
good
other
point that
margins
you don't have
also.
the equity.
And that you.
we could also
and
go
then-
to town meeting and they say, no more money. They can do that, and then what do we be?
Yeah.
We're hanging out there on a string with whatever it's gonna be for a yearly
Well,
payment.
except that
people
didn't
that
Nick
said
raise the issue
No more
about
money,
emergency?
everyone's hanging out there.
Didn't he say something, we have the
Case.
select board has the right to purchase an emergency situation?
right, but we
Well,
still have
here's
to
the
have the
other
money to
thing,
pay for it.
here's the other thing that we have to take into account. If we do this lease, and if I did the numbers correctly, backhoe lease, backhoe rental, excavator rental, plus the 78,000 to lease the grader, it leaves us from our $200,000 with $66,000
I
left.
remember that number.
Which, that's a heck of a lot of next year's $80,000 a year payment on the grader
So
than
you go
nothing.
5 years.
Yeah, you can go to town meeting and say, we did this most fiscally responsible.
And it gives us,
And if you give us another $200,000,
all we'd have to come up with is $14,000 for next year's. If we didn't have some more emergencies and we didn't touch that capital fund, we'd have $66,000 in it and would only have to come up with $14,000.
Keep in
Would you
mind,
like to
I
make a
have 2
motion?
trucks that are due, that are pushing the 10-year mark.
Well, but again, the problem is that Sherwood's raising, what if the town doesn't vote for another $200,000? And Katie's saying that then if you have 66,000 and you don't spend it on any trucks, you don't spend it on any equipment, you've pretty much got close to your second year installment payment made.
At least for the grader, not for the backhoe, but
Yeah,
at least for the grader. The backhoe lease is significantly smaller of a lease at 35,000 as opposed to the 80,000, but that's still, you know, you still have this $66,000 instead of being 13 in the hole or even 1,000 in the hole, you're 66,000 up. It just makes the most sense to me.
But then, you know, if you bought the thing 4 years out, you don't have any more payments, and you've got a machine that's still good and worth a lot of money.
that you can either trade in or just use.
And I understand buying it with this. I just think that if we take it to town meeting, they're gonna say you went over.
But I think, Rick,
But
we
may
can buy it
not go
next
over.
year.
What's that?
We can buy it next
We
year.
can.
We can say
I
like,
could put an article to buy
we
it.
can say like
If it's
this.
the same price next year,
Right.
Who's to say you're gonna get
which
that
it won't
money?
be too.
What?
So you have to,
We'd have to
I
ask.
don't know, Nick was the one that did the loan program because it was an emergency situation.
Right.
They were gonna finance more money than they would normally finance.
They chose not to though, right, Nick?
Maybe Nick fell
It shows
asleep.
that they financed us less than they said.
They didn't bump up they
They
didn't
didn't.
raise the
I
max.
think originally we thought we were gonna get 90%.
We thought we'd get 90%
Right.
because of the emergency. We got
Right.
75, so I don't know if that means that they didn't feel it was an emergency. But the point I'm making is if we lease now to stay in the realm of caution, really, then next year we can come to town meeting and say, look, we did this because of X, Y, and Z. Can we purchase this? And we can go to the state and see what a loan would cost us. You know, we have options.
Or you could continue the lease
Yeah.
until there's makes better financial sense.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually the economy is gonna switch around and you're gonna do a little bit better on these things. But right now, you're not gonna do much of anything.
And we were hit hard, and you have to get working on that. The what did you call it? The depreciation schedule, and
I have one that I was gonna show Helen.
and at
So-
some point, I'd love to sit down and talk to somebody about the 300 fund and the 200 fund and how they were meant to interact but don't seem to any longer.
The problem there, Ally, is that there were 7 people that were playing with that, and it's a mess. We've been trying we did it pretty much last year, trying to get things straightened out as much as she could handle, and there's still work to do. But yeah, they're a mess. So I guess,
I do want us to just like know the pros and cons, right? And maybe we have our whiteboard, you can put up pros and cons, but the pro to the lease is that the first year, we don't get hit so hard, we have additional funds. The con is that we don't have the equity, we don't own it to be able to do what we want with it, I guess. Is that how you would put it? Like either trade it in?
It's not like we're gonna sell the thing in 6 years.
It'll have the value if you sell it, and it'll be still have some great deal of value if it's treated properly.
Correct. But generally, you don't, in something like this, you don't get rid of it before you're done paying for it. I mean, you're gonna keep it.
The grader's gonna be paid for in 4 years.
Right, rather than 6.
Well, somebody
What's the
should call
option?
the question then. Somebody should call the question.
Last week? Yeah, call the question.
I would make a motion to lease on us, 6 or 7 years?
6 years.
6 years. And then we can revisit this at a later date. And that's, what am I leasing? Backhoe?
Greater.
Grader.
So the motion is to lease
The grader
the grader.
for the 5 or 6 years,
I
whatever
think
it
it's a
is.
6 year.
It is 6 years.
With the option to bring this back, back up at a later time. Just that I just want to put in there something that we're still engaged with it.
We'll revisit it budget/town meeting.
Connie, I second.
Any further discussion?
Oh, I think we beat this to death.
I do too.
I think it's the
Thought I did that.
Nick, do you have anything for discussion, if you're still there?
I don't have anything for discussion, but can we just repeat the motion to make sure I heard it clearly?
The motion is to lease the grader for a 6-year lease with an option or an intention to bring this up at a later date. Ally's suggesting that is budget and town meeting time.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do we have to add that we're not gonna take the loan, or is that a different
If we
issue?
don't sign it, we don't take the loan.
Cause the last meeting, the motion, if you look at your motion, what a great thing this motion just did.
Yeah.
Was to enter into a loan or to research the loan? It's
It was
514.
to apply for the loan.
Just to apply for the loan. 514, you can look at 514.
Loan, there it is. Suarez moves to purchase a John Deere grader through EHVT Municipal Loan Program and authorize Evans to sign on behalf. And the signature is this piece that we're not signing.
So it looks like it was to, I guess you could say apply, but to enter. Proceed, so I'm not sure that it committed us definitively one way or the other, but.
What we could do is, we finish this, so we got this down, and then we can reference that one and retract, just simply motion to retract.
Okay.
Do we do that first, Sherwood, and then
Well,
the?
we've already got a motion on the table.
Yeah, so let's finish
Yeah,
this one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Wait a minute,
I'm just trying to chime in pause on the table.
we couldn't hear you, say it again? Nick, could you say that again?
Yes, I was aye for in favor.
And is everybody else aye? I didn't hear or see, so it's a 5-0-0?
Yep. Okay.
Now, what's the date on the one?
514.
514.
So,
Do you want me to read it again to you?
Yeah, please.
Suarez moves to purchase a John Deere grader through EHDT
Okay.
Municipal Loan Program and authorize Evans to sign on behalf of the board. Lake seconds the motion.
so I would make a motion that on 5/4, what do I wanna call this, the article of 5/14/24,
The motion of 514?
there, that'll work, be vacated as it's been replaced by the.
Is someone seconding that?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it's a 5-0-0. We need to take a break. BCTV needs to switch out a card.
Okay. Okay, what we are up to now is Sullivan Powers Audit Contract. Little background information here. Connie very diligently compared last year's contract to this year's contract and found a wonky line.
Do you want me to just give you a summary?
Yeah, here, basically it was like,
We have to let them know we're going at this.
yeah, basically if we're gonna go belly up, we need to let them know, but like I said to Connie, well,
Well, no, that's not what it is.
well,
Can I just give it?
yeah,
So I just want to remind you, this is the 3rd year of a 3-year contract. So this isn't a new contract, it's a 3rd year, but we sign it every year, we re-up it every year. The only difference between last year's contract and this year's contract is a sentence that Sullivan and Powers inserted on page 5. And it basically so we called Jordan, the auditor, and said, why are you inserting this sentence? And he said that the auditing world experts, guidelines, the AICPA and the GASD, can't even read what my handwriting was, they all recommend that this language be put in, so they are putting it in all contracts that they deal with. And it does not allow them to do anything to the town. It would allow them to raise the red flag that there are such serious offenses that it jeopardizes whether or not the town can really function. Now, we don't suffer from that because we do well on ours, but it's only to allow them to alert that there are severe
We
problems.
were concerned when we saw it that it was pointed towards us. And Connie called and the guy called back as the meeting was starting, and it's boilerplate.
Over the last 3 years, we've done really well.
Mhm.
These people have done a really good job, are very available. We were seriously under budgeting, like they had only had $10,000 a year, and it was costing us close to $20,000 a year. So there is.
We should move the, Nick's phone is dying, and we may or may not get him for all the vote. Oh, we already lost him. Forget it, sorry. Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt, Sherwood.
That's okay.
So the fee, so do we need to do anything with this other than?
You need
Yeah,
to, you have to
sign.
make a motion to sign it.
Okay,
I'll do that. Make
So
a
late-
motion to sign the Sullivan and Towers audit contract for this fiscal year.
Second.
and in the amount of 19,900.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
You can add that.
That's what the budget is amounts to, because we knew it
Okay.
was.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So 400, because we lost Nick.
Okay. All right, and, then the next one is the mower contract, you know, the sidebar mower. And, this, I was concerned with when I saw this bill come in because it was 25% more than Jeremy had been quoted in November.
When we were doing the budget.
Yeah, and I had him call and say, hey, you know, we did budgets on the figure you gave us. I know things have gone up, but 25% is a little excessive. Well, guess what? It is what it is.
Didn't we sign, don't we sign a contract with them?
So we,
Every year.
when we, sign a contract when you take it delivered, or weeks before you take it. When I called in the fall, they were in the middle of redoing their numbers because they were taking such a beating on rentals. And he wasn't gonna be able to give me numbers until after the first of the year, solid numbers. So he gave me a ballpark, ended up being nowhere near than what the actual cost is gonna be. But with us leasing the grader, that frees up, I can take the balance out of equipment.
Is there any way that any of the equipment we just authorized to buy will do that job?
No.
What about the mower that they do the common and the?
No, that's a little,
Too
a little family mower.
I need a little bit of rail.
It's-
This is roadside mowing is required by the state.
Yeah.
And for safety.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah, but
And-
they got all the equipment to do it too. It doesn't cost them out of pocket.
Well, I mean, they contract out there, so.
Well, this is one of those things that we could begin to say if we're gonna spend 1,000.
10,000.
But it's for
2,000.
it's 10 days.
I know.
We're gonna spend
$1,000 a day?
Yeah,
It's $5,000 a week.
How
no,
much is that mower, that little mower?
it's not even 2 weeks,
The
it's
little
10.
one,
Yeah,
I don't know what we paid, probably.
Well, and Jeremy
20
said
bucks.
that 10 days won't cover
I'm
the amount
thinking
of mowing we need to do.
we buy a bigger one.
Well, this
Do it
is-
ourselves.
So the conversation I had with the sales guy up there today said they lost money last year in their rentals.
Yeah,
A lot of towns are buying their own mowers now.
yeah.
Because not only do they mow with them, they do their leaf blowing in the fall, which is, you know, once you do all this ditching, you have to keep them clean, you have to keep the leaves out of them. But you can also mow year round. I don't know if you've obviously driven around some of the roads in town, but they're pretty grown in.
Yeah.
And that's due to a lack of mowing each year. You know, now it's gotten to the point where we're gonna have to hand cut a lot of this stuff.
and it puts your snow plowing, moves it forward into the
Right.
roadway.
And you're damaging
trees will
plows.
approach the roads, you know, it's just something that,
How much does those damn things cost?
Well,
brand
there's-
new, they're between $140,000 and $190,000.
Right here, this Massey Diamond number 6 that they're renting us is present value of 168,000.
Oh my God.
But what I'm saying, folks, is it's not even 2 weeks, it's 10 days.
And Jeremy says you can't get all the
I
mowing done
can't,
in
it's
10
not,
days.
we should have it for at least a month.
Is there anybody else?
So this would be 3
There
times
used to be
this.
guys around that you could contract out to. Nobody's around, nobody's doing it
Basically,
anymore.
it's a brush hog, isn't it?
It's a brush hog that's
With
not
the-
on the site,
with the
and you
bar.
can reach out, reach
Yeah.
up, reach over the rails.
But if he needs it for 3 times this, that's over $30,000. Well, yeah, 30,000 because you're only
Don't
moving.
get
So
us
this is the
started
only
on
guy
that.
left. This is the only person left. I know it's late in the game.
It's the only
we're
rental
shopping around.
it's the only rental company that I know of.
Can't we borrow your dad's?
They got more roads.
Just for a couple of weeks. Come on, Daddy.
I can ask.
Mutual aid, mutual aid.
Then you still running into that same, you know, who's responsible for it.
I know, but
Yeah.
if you do this times 3, that's $30,000, and we just spent an hour and 15 minutes talking about.
Well,
Yeah. So,
Well,
It's just something to think about for the future.
well, no, isn't it now?
you know what?
Well,
We gotta
this year,
remember
yeah.
this for town meeting, that
Well,
when
this,
our budget goes up a lot,
well, this is one of those budget
It's one of
things
those
that if somebody wants to grab hold of and do a little research, we can maybe figure out before we get to. I know.
We're getting a
I know.
double-digit tax increase, getting anything at town meeting next year is gonna be like pulling teeth.
I don't agree with you.
You don't think so?
I think for the most part, people have surprised us sometimes, but for the most part, people at town meeting, I mean, look at social services. They go, whoop, yes. You know, they're in front of their peers, they don't wanna say no, and they love their town.
We've been able to show them in the last 3 years that it's just not getting thrown out. I mean, things have gotten done. Equipment is being taken care of. The money that's spent is not good after bad. It's good, you get a good result, so. Just that was a little surprising.
Yeah.
So, should we approve 10 days to get started and then revisit, or?
Do they have it available after that? I thought the question was more that it goes on to somebody else.
Right. We're gonna get it from another town, and then once it's done with us, it goes to another town.
Cost a year.
We may not be able to get it.
Can't get it.
If I reschedule now,
so most towns that you know own theirs, is that what you're saying?
Brattleboro owns their own, of course, they're a bigger city, like Guilford has their own, he's got more, he's got, I think 30 more miles of road than us. Brookline just bought the rubber tire excavator that comes with the head on it. So you can use it both as an excavator and a roadside mower. But that's a $250,000 machine.
Yeah, but there's a good place to go ask, because you've been hauling dirt for them.
We haven't done anything.
Not yet. Well, you were supposed to.
Well, he hasn't
Mutual
called me,
aid.
so.
Mutual aid. You should call him up and see what it would cost for him to come up here and do that. When do you have to have an answer in on this?
Well, it's supposed to come on the 8th. I had it scheduled for the 8th.
July 8th? Well, I guess that's shot.
It would be nice to
Well,
know
when's
that.
our next
We can
meeting?
pay their guy to run it.
Well, our next meeting's the 9th.
Can't reschedule it?
It's, what did I say? I have $8,000 budgeted for it
Yeah.
already. So we're gonna be over by 3,000 or 20,000 or $3,000.
I keep thinking he should give us something. Ask him if he'll change the 10 days to 14 days.
Yeah, for another $1,000.
No, but you know what I mean.
We get 44 hours per week cycle is what we can put on the machine before they start charging us extra. We used to be able to do 50. So,
And what did it, is that?
so
what
it's
$1,000
88 hours for that price.
Is it the $1,000 come based on that time you put on it? Is that?
No, it's a flat weekly rate, but you cannot exceed more than 44 hours per week.
And what happens if you do?
You probably get charged an hourly rate.
They take your firstborn child.
Well, all I'm thinking of is split your days up, split your road crew days up. One guy comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning and runs that thing until the next guy comes in and takes off until 7, 8 o'clock at night, get everything done.
Well, but it's 44 hours.
44 hours.
Whether you have one guy
per
run,
week.
if they cap it at 44.
Well, I think what Sherry's saying is no one person with breaks and everything else works 44 hours a week.
Oh,
Yeah, so make it.
Like running the
Just
equipment time.
Run it until it,
Run it 9 hours a day until you use it.
So in the past, we just had one person do it for, and at first they would do comp time. Steve had worked it out so that whoever was in the machine would do comp time. I think last year he just paid, or the year before he just paid the guy overtime.
Well, I like your, adjust the hours a bit.
yeah. Or what would be the rate, do you know what the rate would be for
Overage?
over hours?
I could call.
Might be worth it, might be worth, shifting a guy out, or shifting his hours a little bit, so the thing's on the road 9 or 10 hours. You get as much of it done, because I think you said that what you have right now is not gonna get what you need done. But if you can run it,
Well, I mean, it'll get our blacktop done
yeah.
and maybe some of the major side roads, but we're so far behind in it. I mean,
Well, and what you were saying is some of the roads, because they haven't been done properly, the trees are getting large
Right.
and then snow plows hit them and we have damage that way and.
I have an idea. We could approve this right now if we want to, right? And then if you get a number, since it's not coming, and it's coming the day before our next meeting, but if you got a number on what going over 44 hours was, and we didn't hate that number, you could bring that to us and we could vote on that and decide if it was okay to let you go over the 44 hours.
Because we already have it at 44.
Because we'll have it on the 8th and we meet on the 9th, and so we have it for what we have this in front of us for, so we're not pushing it out any further, since it seems like that's not a good idea either. And then if you can ask that question, how much is this if we go over the 44 hours a week, then we could vote
Like
on
50 or 60 hours total a week,
so then
or the 10
we
days.
still have to give it up after 10 days. So
Right.
then you're saying that we would run it, like you would stagger 2 shifts so you could run it up
Maybe.
until
Well,
sunset?
Yeah.
Up until sunset?
Get the damn thing out at 6 o'clock in the morning and run it until
8
6
p.m.
o'clock at night,
Yeah.
12-hour day.
Does that
You
seem
can
like
split your guys. If you're not able to hit what you need to hit, we gotta find a way to do it within the
So
confines.
why don't you make
I
that
have
motion?
spoken with Warrensboro too about having them come down and beat back some brush for us in the this slow seasons.
Yeah.
And Jake has agreed,
He's got a brush hog.
They have a rubber tire excavator just like Brookline does with a mulching head on
That'd be great if they do it.
And then he could take care of some of the dirt roads then.
it. Correct.
Okay. How is this motion gonna be worded?
Well, I think that possibility is another possibility for us if you got a estimate.
But I'm not gonna do it again this time of year.
Oh, because it's too busy right now.
Right.
When would you, that would be like,
Like a spring and fall thing.
Spring and
or
fall.
late fall, when
Fall
there's no
season.
snow, if there's no.
okay. I
Okay, so
misunderstood
we're
what you
only
said.
on this one. With the 10 days, but the increased hours, so approve this.
I think we don't even have to approve the increased hours yet. I think
No.
we have next meeting to do
That
that.
would be clear.
I'll get a number
What do
and
you,
bring it to the next meeting, because
Yeah.
we'll only be 2 days into the rental at that point.
yeah,
I would just approve that contract with her without signing it, and then we'll bring it to the next meeting with what number you got, see if we can
Okay.
work the thing.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Pete's Equipment Sales and Rentals contract for 10 days of mowing in the amount of $10,850, and authorizing Ally Evans to sign on behalf of the select board.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think we beat this one to death too.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kate, did you say aye?
Yeah.
Getting tired?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Catherine, bedtime.
Okay, can we move on to our final piece, which I only first heard about today. It's called CCC. It's something that supposedly Elaine didn't know about until right now. And it is, the state of Vermont has implemented a new payroll deduction, and it's 0.44% of our gross payroll tax that we have to pay. Now, do we have to pay it or in full, or is it a employer shared expense? That's our decision, but the state wants their money. Elaine, at our direction, gave us this memo, I guess it is, and she had the estimated payroll taxes of 2024 at $408,798.84, which is $1798.71 the tax would be.
This is on our employees' wages.
It's on our employee wages. It's not like on the selectmen stipend, things like that. It's anything that's held like a normal payroll. And I think that it's something, in my opinion, we could pay now. I'm not happy with the way the state kind of blindsided us.
Do it all the time.
Yeah, with it, but I think at budget time, that's when we should talk about, do we pay this fully?
Factors into employees' rate.
I mean, because 25% of employee wages are already payroll taxes, and I know this is only 0.44, but you know, when you keep adding, and everything that we do pay, do we at least look at it at budget time?
How much will it cost us for covering it the year?
Well, that's what she did last year's payroll, assuming that this one would be about the same. I think that
She called the state, or she called Nemrick and found that it's a calendar year, not a fiscal year that they.
Of course.
So that she was told to calculate it from July 1st through December, and I felt she gave the amount.
I think it's 1,700.
Yeah, and she said if you had the employee
1,000
share, you'd only save a little over $400. Her recommendation is to have the town pay the whole.
$1,798.71.
That's what I just read.
Where would it come from?
It would come from
General.
unbudgeted general fund, because we haven't budgeted for it. And for a state that knows how to budget for their own stuff, they sure abuse us in this way, but that's just my feeling.
Wait until the insurance bills come.
I know. And as I said, I think when we have the budget folder, Connie, we can put this in.
It's already in.
Okay, because we're starting a folder of budget things that we want to look at and not forget. I guess we have to
Make a motion.
make a
I would
motion.
make a motion to pay this new tax in full for this fiscal year, basically. What's the total?
$1,798.
Not to exceed $1,800.
That's through December.
And the thing that does.
Can I just say that I believe her calculation is not through the fiscal year, it's only through December.
Calendar year?
Yeah,
Well, okay, I'll
For this
change
calendar
it,
year?
yeah, change
Okay.
it, yeah.
and he said not to exceed $1,800.
So So this is a statewide tax that all employees are going to have to pay.
Correct.
And what exactly is it doing?
I don't know. I have stuff here, you can see it. I think it's basically, the stuff here is more about how we're paying.
Or, do you have a kid in school?
Oh, I thought you were talking, I just swore.
Oh, I do that all the time. You have a kid in school?
No.
Right.
But your taxes don't reflect the fact that you
I don't
don't
think
have a kid
anybody
in
in
school.
this room has kids.
Same thing.
including
Oh, my
you.
husband talks about it all the time, he gets
Okay.
sputters.
And just, the last thing is to note March 24th. I don't know if Elaine should have known, March 2024. I don't know if we should have known about it ahead of time and didn't, or are they just sending it to us?
She said NEMRIC passed this information to towns in a webinar on June 10th.
Right, but the state has it marked this March
Right.
2024.
Right, so I don't know where that was between March and June, but it looks like NEMRIC.
But should we / treasurer be more involved?
Good luck with that.
We have not yet voted on this, I don't believe.
No, we haven't. We have a very nice motion, thank you.
I seconded.
Then you seconded it, and discussion is done, and so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is anybody in favor of going home?
I we skipped.
Oh, we did,
I can be really quick.
okay.
Um,
I thought you were quitting.
no, we skipped my grant update, and I think it's important.
The background noise.
No, we already passed over it. Alright, so my fountain research is ongoing, but in the meantime, I had a woman named Charlotte Barrett come from the Preservation Trust of Vermont. After my many conversations with the state historic architect and the historic preservation grant people, because it was raised to the select board that the upstairs windows were dangerous and that the roof was leaking. So I started with the state historic architect, that's Devin Coleman. He looped in Caitlin Corcoran, who does the preservation grants, but they all work in historic preservation and are very interested in our town hall buildings. They referred me to Charlotte Barrett, and then she decided that she asked if she could come for just a site visit, not a building condition. And she came out and she explained to us the different steps that we could take to get those repairs done. She has lists of contractors she's going to share with us. And it turns out that we can get some estimates on the roof or the windows or both. And then we can decide if we want to use those estimates to get just the repair of the windows through a grant that this woman, Caitlin Corcoran from Historic Preservation of Vermont, she deals with those grants. She's already heard about our project from these correspondence and when I corresponded with them initially, it was only to find out what contractor could come and give us an estimate. So that's somewhat the direction, and the planning commission has been, we had members of the planning commission at that meeting, and then they've been looped into all of the emails having to do with it, and so I'm the point person, and Andy Snelling from the planning commission are the point person to be talking to Charlotte Barrett. So there is a possibility these historic preservation grants are smaller. I think they are max $20,000. So pursuing one of those grants in August when the funding opens, she said they give them for things just like this. And if we get that estimate, we can decide if we want to go ahead with the historic preservation grant. So that's something that I've been working on since the last meeting.
What's your recommendation on next steps on this?
She told us to get some estimates, and she's gonna pass along the names of the contractors. I already gave you those contractors from their list, but she said she has even more names to share with us, so we can kind of dial in exactly who to speak to about the windows and the roof. And it doesn't mean we couldn't also reach out to the people that have dealt with the roof before, or anyone in town that deals with slate roofs, just to find out what's going on with it. And I heard there was 2 small leaks up there. So she said either of those projects, either the repair of the windows or the repair of the roof, could possibly be covered.
Both.
Possibly.
My understanding is that the next steps is to get the names of contractors, to get estimates.
Yep.
And then the select board would need to decide whether or not to apply in August for a preservation grant.
Right, and in the meantime, I can put together all the information that whatever is out there for that historic preservation grant, though the funding doesn't open until August. Charlotte has been filling me in on more information on how that works, how long you have to use the money, all of this kind of stuff, which is important for us to know if we bring it before the board for any kind of
And we have the
decision.
windows secured now, so
The
it's
windows
not,
are secured.
it's not a danger to keep them as is.
Right.
Katie,
Yeah.
I can remember back, probably 6 months ago, you were talking about a grant for those screens up there because the place is a
Yep.
historic, what they call it, a cultural site?
Yeah, there's cultural facilities grants that could possibly, I mean, they were restored 15 years ago. I think our problem with the curtains, I formed a committee with the Historical Society to watch over them basically, and I've been trained on how to use them. I just need to train other people because they're very heavy. Because the best thing to do is store them up. You're looking at me because you know. But we do have, I think, 3 of them that are rolled up and put in the back of the balcony. And I think we need to decide at some point what we want to do with that because they're really important.
The big problem is going to be when they start doing work, one, the tin roof, if they're gonna dig into it, and there's all kinds of water up there.
Right.
So we're gonna have to do something to ensure that those things don't get wet, because they're basically watercolor paintings that are well over 100 years old.
Right, and so also in that way, we could that might help us decide what project we're gonna do sooner or later. Is the roof something that can wait, or is it not? Is it just moving a tile or not? You know, I mean, we don't know, so we need to compile that information, which is what.
There's more than 2 spots.
Yeah. So there was that, and then the last thing that I want to mention is that a few meetings ago, or maybe just a Connie, I don't remember which, I did when we were going through the MTAP to find out if we were going to get the fire alarms and the generators. I had found that Passive offers a grant that's a 50% reimbursement for things like fire alarms, and since we did not get the MTAP for the generators and the fire alarms, we still need fire alarms. Not saying we don't need generators, but we do have a possibility that if we wanted to bring in their preferred vendor to give us an estimate, we could decide if we want to pay 50% of that money or get reimbursed 50% of that money and get our fire alarms.
It's a good grant program.
It's
Would that cover sprinkler systems?
It covers the fire alarms only from what I understand, but possibly they have a preferred vendor you have to use. So we had, I think Glenn had sent us the name of somebody before the MTAP to give us a quote on the fire alarms, and then we didn't end up doing that one, and then the MTAP came along. And in the meantime, with this Passive, I found out that they had a preferred vendor. You gotta call them, get them in here for an estimate, and then decide if you wanna move forward or not. But you have to use him in order to get the reimbursement.
Because if we had sprinklers, it would also lower the insurance cost on those buildings that need sprinklers, which is the schools and this building.
We can look into that when you talk to the vendor.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to give the name to Connie, the name and phone number of the fire alarms vendor, or if we wanna wait and talk about it more. That's up to you guys.
Well, just remember with those grants, they come out twice a year, and if you don't hit the window.
Right.
You have a makeup window, but if every one of the people fulfill their grant in the first window, you use more.
I thought this one goes until October. I can double check.
Okay,
so we're sort of in the middle of it, I believe. Which,
so if you're gonna do it, you need to get it on the top of the.
Right. I gotta check again, but I thought this.
It doesn't hurt to call the guy and have him come.
Right.
That doesn't cost anything.
That doesn't cost anything.
So it's not like there's no fire alarms in here. They just need to be upgraded.
Right, and then if we're at the tail end of the grant, but we already had the estimate given to us, we just use it at the next round.
Yeah.
So I think it can't hurt to have that person.
And you get more. Sometimes you get more of a percentage when people that have applied don't carry through or don't fulfill it.
Yes.
And if we get a break on our insurance, that break filters into that program. So there's more money available.
Yeah.
Good.
Alright, so that's what I've been working on.
Good, thank you.
So is the board,
You had mentioned at, I think, a previous meeting that you were going to try to go forward with the grant that you were working with for the gazebo in order to maybe fix the fountain. As that,
Yep, so I have spoken to Reed from Newfane, who caretakes the courthouse and the fountain there, because their fountain is actually not original, but he has their original fountain, to get me some information on the fountain. I've also spoken to the Historical Society, and I have 10 years of town reports from 1885 to 1895 to find out where did we get this thing, because Charlie Marchand had told me that our cemetery gates were stolen some years ago, and they were able to get the original plans or have them made because the company still existed. So if we wanted to find out more information about the fountain, if we wanted to replace the finial that's missing off the top, if we wanted to find out anything about it, I could trace the history and find that out. The other thing that I was talking to Reed about in Newfane is that since he caretakes this fountain, he knows about the appropriate ways to paint it and everything that we might need to do to fix it up a little bit better than it is currently. I know that Jeremy had said that the pump was broken. That's like a less of an issue, but could be looped into the grant if we wanted to, or we could fix that in the meantime and have the grant be a larger restoration of the original fountain project. So the funding doesn't open until July 1st, I believe. So I took the month of June to try to find out if I could even get any information on it in the first place before moving forward on attempting to get anything else. So that's what I've been doing.
so the month of June was for research.
Yep.
What's the next steps?
So I've been working with another grant writer. She's been talking to me about writing the elevator statement, which is basically like your catch statement for the first part of that. Working basically like once Reed meets with me, if he decides to do so, then I could discuss how much it would cost to sandblast it, how much it would cost to paint it, and get that
So
budget
scope
put
of
together.
work, basically scope of work.
Yep, get that budget put together and find out for what it would cost and how much of the grant to apply for. You can apply up to $50,000.
When does it have to be submitted?
I believe it's September 30th. And then you find out 6 weeks later whether or not you get it. Then you have a year from when you get it. So from a year from mid-November to use the money, which I thought was an appropriate time frame for going into the spring and being able to do anything outside. Would give you enough time.
You should think about when you've got people doing the grant, about building an enclosure for the winter. Because a lot of the damage to that thing has come from, kids, and the snow and ice that are in that thing, it causes those bricks to, but if they can build, just a teepee style, enclosure that can fold out.
We could have the art class do an enclosure for it and paint the fountain right on it.
So Katie, my understanding is that we can apply any time up to September 30th.
Yes.
Do you anticipate taking all the way up to September 30th, or do you have other timeline?
I don't know, because I have not gotten as far as budgeting the project. I have mostly been calling all over the place to just find out if it's even feasible or what would need to happen to it. I had somebody that knows about metalwork come there and look at it. I've talked to Jeremy a couple times about what he might know about it.
Wrought iron fence.
But it's not a scenario where the later we apply, the less chance, it's not like a.
No, it's not, it is a competitive grant, but at the time that we were going to try to use it before, they had never been in our area, but now they've funded in Northampton, Mass, so that kind of changes the game a little bit. Before it was mostly funding across the Midwest, but now they've kind of moved over here, which I think is good for us, because that was a concern that VIII had, that we're not even on the map to them, but we kind of are now. So But I don't anticipate taking till the very last second. They say to give 2 weeks, so if you have any issues with your upload and things like that, so.
Well, thank you for doing that.
And I also, in addition to that, what I wanted to do, and I think I did not come up with a proposal for the board tonight about this, but I might at the next time I update, which is a second meeting in July. I'd like to possibly have some sort of event at the fountain to show people what kind of history that I've come up with and stuff like that to get people interested, because the grant also likes somewhat of the community engagement aspect of it, and I think that maybe people might like learning about the fountain and what it was and what it is and what it could be, and just introduce them to the possibility of it being rejuvenated. So that's something I've been thinking about proposing to the board, and I'll bring more information next month on that.
Maybe it should be coordinated with like the gazebo dedication.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'm thinking of this project not just as the fountain, but as this like furthering of the beautification of the common and kind of the rejuvenation of that space and the inviting nature that you and I talked about with the contract to even use it, how we want to invite people to use this space.
So I have one question before we end. Is the board directing me to contact Passive's preferred vendor? And is the board directing me to contact contractors to get estimates on the windows and the roof? I just need to know if the board is directing me on that.
Yep. And I have one more mention before we depart. I've been monitoring how much we're spending, sending stuff to Wyndham Solid Waste, and it keeps going up, and I've asked Eddie if he's enforcing the hang tags, and he said no.
The what?
The hang tags, the resident stickers, because it's been all over the papers and everything that, like Brookline, for instance, they only take their trash they recycle once a week, and people are searching for places to put it. So it's a total no-brainer to say, well, recycle doesn't cost anything, we'll drop it at Townsend. And then we're paying a lot more. So I've asked him to start in a nice way saying, where's your hang tag? You don't have it. I gave him a pad of paper to write their name and address, and we can go from there. And if we think we need signs that say, this refuse facility is restricted to Townsend residents or property owners or whatever.
I think it says that already, doesn't it?
Yeah, so, but that's just a mention.
One question. Hopefully this is the last question. The dedication, who or what is the gazebo going to be dedicated to? Or is it just going to be open officially?
I think it's a dedication.
Yeah, well, we had said when we had come with the 42,000, remember when you folks approved that? And we said we'd like to dedicate it to the Mosley family. I've been charged with trying to find out where the hell the Mosley family is.
They're from California, they're all gone.
Right, well,
Here's a suggestion for you while you're doing this. Dick Jackson has been here for a long time. He's given a lot to this community. He was just awarded a medal from the French government for being part of this military unit that
was incredible.
Liberated France. And he, like I said, he's done a lot for this community. He was still doing recording 2 years ago.
A couple of years ago.
And if he hadn't have fallen down that hill and ended up where he ended up, he'd still be doing it. And I just think that it would be a great thing to do. And I think he'd get a hell of a kick out.
So you're saying you want to have a plaque for Dick?
Yeah.
For the Mosleys? I mean, we were going to do a plaque saying thank you to the Mosley family.
Well, we have to see if we can find them.
I've already found them.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Oh, no, not the family.
Okay.
The plaques. I found plaques.
Well, we can put something like that on as a, this was benefit from the Mosley family, and still put Dick's name or something in there. I mean, I think it
mentioned it during the dedication in some way.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
we could take an adjournment vote.
Motion to adjourn.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What are you squawking about? You're on overtime.
You're still on fire.